Hello, everyone. We are going to call to order our meeting for tonight. Our Committee on Curriculum Instruction and Student Life Committee is starting at this time. So I want to welcome you to our meeting. We are meeting in a hybrid and remote model using our remote meeting application, which allows for remote participation and public access to the open portions of our meeting. We want to thank BevCam. They are streaming and broadcasting this evening, so thank you, BevCam. Beginning on June 16th, 2021, with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, which were extended a few times, Governor Healy signed into bill a law which extends until June 30th of 2027 the ability for public bodies to continue to hold meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at the meeting location and to provide adequate and alternative access to meetings. So in this case, our body is using technological methods to allow safe public real-time access. And as a note, Beverly has prior approval for remote participation of members, although through that permission, the chair and quorum will be physically present when this act and its extensions expire. So with that being the case, because we have people in both locations, we will be calling the roll for our different votes and our other decisions. So with that, I want to go ahead and call the roll. And I know there might be at least one person who's running late, so we'll just, if you're here, present, please make sure that if you're remote, you can let us know if you can hear okay. So I'm Dr. Kania Mackenzie DeFranza, present. Rachel Abel, our president. Karen Robinson.
Here.
Dr. Flaherty is absent tonight.
She's online.
She's online? Oh, there you are. Nice to see you. Okay. Derek Brennan.
Present.
Okay. Dr. Trochik. Here. Katie Kraft.
Present.
Thank you. Patricia Spanks. I believe is running a little late. Ryan Redmond.
Present.
Maverick Genist. Okay. Sadie Brennan. Akol Deng. Jacob Atunez.
You need to speak up.
Nope. Okay. Delphine Qua. Okay. Dr. Andre Morgan. And Casey Fiore.
Present.
All right. Thank you so much. So with that, I would like to invite Mr. Fiore to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and I want to thank the other members of our school community who are here, who might not have been called in the roll, but thank you for joining us. The next order of business is approving the minutes from our March meeting, March 12th. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any corrections or edits to the minutes? Okay, all right. Seeing none, our minutes are approved and we will enter them into the record unless we have any. Okay, we will do that. All right, so let me go back to my roll. We don't have any of our students here, so I'll skip those. Rachel Abel,
Yes.
Karen Robinson.
Yes.
Okay, Derek Brennan.
Yes.
Okay, so Katie Kraft. I don't know if you need to vote, but I'm going to call on you anyway.
Yes.
Okay, so Patricia's not here. Patricia Spanks. No. Okay. Ryan Redmond. Okay.
Abstain. I wasn't present.
Okay, thank you. Maverick Genist. Sadie Brennan. Akol Deng. Jacob Atunez and Delphine Qua. Our students are not here, but often they will abstain and just acknowledge their presence there. And then I, Kania Mackenzie DeFranza, yes. So with that, it looks like we have a unanimous decision to accept our minutes into the record.
5 with 1 abstention.
Mm-hmm. Do you need this? Thank you. Okay, we do not seem to have our students here tonight for our updates. Am I missing anyone? Any of our students who are here for
So I was
updates?
just,
on
yeah.
behalf of.
So Delphine sent something in,
Okay,
and so
perfect.
Mr. Brennan was going to read that for her.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you. So the beautiful weather we've been having, obviously sports have been moved around a little bit, so unfortunately many of our students weren't able to join us tonight, but Delphine Quad did pass along a message for the group. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to tell you about an aspect of 8th grade that has had an impact on me and my peers. As part of our National Junior Honor Society requirements, we were asked to complete 15 hours of community service. I expected it to be enjoyable, but I didn't recognize how much impact it would have on me. Every week, I visit the Herrick House, a senior housing center near Beverly Hospital, and play piano for the residents. I was pretty shy at first, but as I came back more and more, I started to see familiar faces and learned a little bit about them. Over time, it has become something that makes me feel connected to my community and happy to be there. I love that we get to share our love of music.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for reading. Appreciate that. All right, that's terrific. And there were no other updates from any other students, correct? Okay, thank you so much. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Trocek, who is stepping in for Dr. Flaherty to do the presentation for our student life updates with regard to our K-12 curriculum adoption and implementation. So thank you, Dr. Trocek.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm pleased to be here, and hope I can hold up the tradition that Dot has of these amazing CISL meetings. It's been about 6 years since I ran a CISL meeting, so it's a little change. But we have a great opportunity this evening. On the agenda, we have the update of our literacy K through 12 ELA curriculum. As you know, over the past 2 or 3 years, we've invested heavily in Beverly in updating our curriculums for English language arts. And I am super excited because tonight, not only are we going to give you an update, but we actually have our students and our teachers who are going to lead that update for us. So I just have to switch slides here because I couldn't get that to, stop it, I'm not signed up. All right. Share, am I in the, yep, here we go. And so tonight, we're going to begin with our Wit and Wisdom implementation, grades K to 4. And I think I saw Heidi for one. I know for sure Heidi is here and Cynthia is here. So, and Maeve is here too. So why don't you all come on up and you can get us started. I know that you have lots to share about that. So, and I also want to take a moment just to give a nod. These are our coaches across the district in each of our elementary schools. So I didn't see Nora or Marissa or Julie here, but they are all of our coaches who do an amazing job of providing both high quality professional development to our students and to our teachers, and to some interventional instruction to our students as well. So thank you for all you do. Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. We're happy to be here tonight to discuss the implementation of Wit and Wisdom at the elementary level. As Sue mentioned, there are 6 of us who presented this who created this presentation. I'm presenting tonight with Heidi and Maeve. Heidi and I presented to you 3 years ago about the adoption of the program, so we're really excited to be able to be here tonight to give you the update. We're really happy to have Maeve here as well, who will talk from multiple perspectives. She started off in year 1 as a teacher and has moved into a coaching role, so she'll be able to share about that experience as well. So in terms of updates, we are in year 3 of implementation. We've listed out our goals and just thinking about how we've progressed. In 22-23, our first year, we were really focused on acclimation to the program, learning the program, its components, thinking about module and lesson structure. Once we had that in place in 23-24, we moved on to a focus of urgency and pacing. And what we were really doing was looking at creating organized, clear, well-paced, meaningful instruction. And we were very focused on having students know the purpose for their learning and the value of their learning. This year, we've moved on to productive struggle. So we're going deeper into our learning with teachers and students. I think one of the biggest things with our implementation is the knowledge-based curriculum. We've been able to implement K to 8 now, and Lauren will talk about that in a bit. But we have students deeply learning content at K to 5 and 6 to 8, and we have that throughway of a knowledge-based curriculum throughout, which we're thrilled about. In addition, we've really focused on writing. We've taken our writing models in K to 5 and extended them to 6 to 8, which has been amazing. And overall, teacher feedback has been positive. There's been a shift from learning a new curriculum to now having internalized the curriculum. In the first 2 years of implementation, we were extremely fortunate to receive a grant from DESE that allowed us to do so many different things. We worked with a consultant from Rivet who specialized in the implementation of high-quality instructional materials. With her, we had multiple site visits where she came in and gave us feedback on our implementation, monthly meetings with her. She was constantly providing us with resources, and she also did a lot of collaboration with Great Minds and our consultants from that company as we implemented. In the first year, we received $70,000 in grant funding, which allowed us to purchase additional text to support the program. And in 23-24, we received over $200,000 in funding to support implementation. We used the bulk of that money on professional development and coaching for teachers, coaches, and administrators as well. Just to give an overview of that professional development, you can see in year 1, most of it was facilitated by the Beverly Literacy coaches. We really focused in on bringing folks together across the district to collaborate and build knowledge about the program. We had Great Minds come in once during that point to facilitate module and lesson studies, but there was a big shift in year 2 because of that grant from DESE. At that point, we were able to bring in Great Minds to facilitate writing instruction with every grade level across the district. Fluency and reading, test taking. We were able to provide coaching series at each school's, strategic planning for coaches and administrators. It was really an amazing opportunity we had because of that grant. And after we had finished up that year of PD, we were able to do one final series at the end of the year in June, where we brought all of our teachers together across the district to do writing professional development and really standardize what we were doing across the district in terms of writing and ELA. I'm going to pass things over to Heidi. She's going to talk a little bit more specifically about writing.
So I was just having a conversation before I get started, Heidi Moran, literacy coach at Cove, and I was happy to meet a 5th grade teacher who said that not only does she have exciting things to share about the program, but also that she's now seeing that the middle schoolers are more prepared in their writing, and there's been a continuity of both the writing and also the knowledge. So that was a little bit of good news for me after a long day of MCAS. So it was kind of exciting to see, okay, this is working. All right, so at that end of the year 2, we thought before we set an entire agenda for our summer training, let's talk to the teachers and get their input. Where are we? What do you need most? How can we help you? How can we craft a week-long PD that will help you go into the following school year feeling pretty good? And it was unanimous that people felt like they needed a little bit of help with writing, but in terms of more cohesive writing within the grade level and then across vertically throughout the grade levels. And so we put together some information with teachers. We met with each grade level. We asked them what we could do to help them. And we sort of tailored it. It was writing, but tailored it according to each grade level. And so that was how we structured that week, and we got really good feedback. So we were excited that what we were doing was working, and we're starting to see those gains as we go into the school year. And so some of the things that they asked us to do were to identify anchor papers, exemplars. And another exciting bit of news is the program came with exemplars, but our Beverly writing is exemplary and happened to be a lot better than the examples. So we were able to identify those student examples, which we have pictures, and I also have a 4th grade sample that I just wanted to show you the culminating effect of all of the writing. And we standardized the formats. We wanted it to be so that as they leave one grade level and go to the next, it's not entirely new. It builds upon that, and the complexity, of course, increases, but the scaffolds and the formats will remain the same. And in addition to that, in the beginning of the year, you can imagine that the support is heavier, and then we sort of release that as the year goes on. For example, we have graphic organizers that are streamlined so that as you go through the grade level, they all look the same. But toward the end of the year, we want to remove those scaffolds and they use them as a guide. And then as the year goes on even further, they just get a blank piece of paper and they know exactly what to do. They know the keywords to look for and things like that when it comes to writing. So there's been a real organization of assessments. All of those things are in one document for every grade level, and they can easily access them, the teachers. And so one of the best things that came out of this, and I think where we got the best feedback within the schools, from the principals, from the coaches, from the teachers, was a real, true collaboration between the teachers across the entire building. And that was really nice to see. There was a sharing of ideas and resources, and people were asking, can we come back together throughout the year as a district? And so we were excited about that. Yes, please. So in addition to that, we were able to, coaches, get into classrooms and model lessons. But I had the unique opportunity that first year of implementation to, in addition to all the grade levels, spend an extended amount of time in both K and 4. So I was able to see what the expectations were in 4 and get a little stressed in my first couple of months of teaching the kindergarten, because I know with kindergarten, for those of you who have taught primary grades and or are a parent, we know that the first thing that starts is sounds. So we're teaching cat, how to write it, how sounds map to letters, to words. How am I ever going to get them to sentences by the end of the year? And just over time, trusting the program, trusting each other, trusting my colleague who said, don't worry, we'll get there. Kindergarten was able to write some simple sentences that sort of went along in a story. And now I'm looking at that same year, as I said, I was teaching grade 4. I'm now teaching grade 4 again this year, co-teaching, and I'm able to see even the progression from that first year of teaching it and where we are now. And now we have kids that are writing, complex compound sentences from where we were just writing inventive spelling and letters. So I feel really encouraged. And I just wanted to show you just a sample of one of our narrative stories that you can take a look at and bring every grade level, but just where we were and where we are now. And in one of our modules, we're writing some escape stories. That's our, we're writing narrative stories across the grade levels, and we read, our module was about hatchet and how to survive, mountain survival, and they wrote these amazing survival stories. So I'll let you have that so you can have a chance to look that over when you have a moment. But remember that we started with writing letters and sounds. And so now that we are further along in our implementation and feeling more confident and comfortable with the curriculum, we're able to do what we always do in Beverly and look at it and make sure that we have representation. And so we've put some purposeful supplements in that support our knowledge goals, but also added some text to show various perspectives that we felt were missing or not done well. We didn't remove any Wit and Wisdom core text. In most cases, we didn't replace them, but we added them as enhancements. And we also did things like in 3rd grade, we were learning about space, and our focus for writing is opinion writing, and we wanted to add essays on which women had the greatest influence on space, and not just as it was originally created in the lesson plan. And we also have things like choice boards so that kids can take the opportunity to also look at the view of injustice to race, disability, socioeconomics, and gender by adding in some really purposeful read-alouds. And lastly, the fun. It's elementary school. We're going to take our topics. So in grade 1, these are just a couple of examples of some fun things that we've been doing. Our module in grade 1 is a world of books. Kids get books from all over the place around the world. So we had the bookmobile come and visit, and we get books from here, we get books from there. Grade 1 also, creature feature unit, we had a collaboration with North Shore Education Consortium. They partnered with our first grade teachers and students at Cove to bring their interactive science program for a visit. And in 3rd and 4th, we have both the ocean unit and the heart, literal and figurative, and they came and our science teacher dissected a heart in 4th grade, and also a squid. So those were just some of the highlights. And that's about it. So I hope you enjoy the 4th grade writing. It was definitely a labor of love. And this is Maeve Moore. She is a coach at Hannah, and she's going to talk to you about not just some different perspectives on how it's going.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Maeve Moore, instructional coach at Hannah Elementary. I also work with Marissa Rattay. She's unfortunately not able to be here, but as Cynthia said, I come with a kind of a unique perspective as I'm in my 2nd year as a coach in this role, after spending many years in 4th grade, and a few people know how many years that it was. When Wit and Wisdom came out, I was on the receiving end of the professional development for the teachers, and I saw that roll out, and I was really just blown away with the amount of time, the amount of care that the coaches took in order to make sure the teachers felt supported and being able to bring in this new curriculum. So I really did have a unique perspective there. Then moving into this coach's role, your perspective changed, and now not only am I really kind of receiving that PD again, but I am implementing it. So when I talk with my literacy coach friends here, I always try to bring that little perspective back in that, oh yeah, remember, we're going to go here, we're going to do this. So really what, as we talked as a team, looking at what we really sought as the biggest, pardon me, how our instruction has changed, really it has been more about building that knowledge-based curriculum. We have seen that just explode in the kindergarten all the way up to 4th grade. The students are able to talk to you, explain a topic, and that really is because throughout a module, they are just immersed in this topic and they are able to really enjoy it. And we've really seen this oral language, the students being able to converse on these topics and converse with a high level of vocabulary. So we can really see through K through 4, as Cynthia and Heidi has alluded to, the changes that we see. And each year we see so much more gained by the students that have had Wit and Wisdom as they're coming into this next level or next grade level. So we were asked really, what have we really valued about this implementation process? And honestly, the collaboration that we have seen between the elementary schools coming together, sharing ideas, working over the summer, last summer, pulling together that writing PD, the amount of teachers that were involved with that and sharing their ideas, then bringing it back and sharing it even further. So that has been something that has been so, so valuable. And really the facilitating of the coaching cycles has been just immensely popular with us and just helped us really understand this program more. And I have the pleasure of working with Gabrielle Montevecchi, who is amazing, and I know she would not be happy if I did not mention that the Hannah School, we are participants in the Playful Learning Grant, and with this new program, we were a bit hesitant about how to bring this knowledge building curriculum into the playful learning. And I have to say, the teachers have just done it seamlessly, and the students can talk about any and all levels of learning that they've done, and just moving from there, they're pulling that into the playful learning, which has the studios, and they have voice and choice, and it's just been really wonderful to see. That's a plug, Mrs. Montevecchi. And then finally, we were asked to gather some student and teacher perspectives. And so we have the video there that we're just going to play. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
It's going to switch the TV over to, we've, in the past at CISL, when we try to show videos, they don't work as well. The volume, we're not able to hear it, so we're hoping that we've found a solution to this so the video will play really nicely for both those of you at home and for those of us that are here in the audience, so.
I'm learning about Asia, and Asia is the biggest continent of the 7.
Hi, I'm here with my friend Penelope from first grade. She's wearing her lucky shirt today, and she's going to tell us all about her favorite book from Module 1 of Wit and Wisdom.
My favorite book from Module 1 is Waiting on the Biblioboro, because it's about a little girl who wrote the book, and she was very patient. And my favorite book over here is Madeline Finn and the Library Dog, because at the end the dog has babies and they tower Madeline.
Anything else you wanted to say, or that was pretty much it?
That was pretty much it.
All right, thank you so much for talking to us today. I'm here with my friend Junie from first grade. She's going to tell us a little bit about her favorite book from Module 1 of Wit and Wisdom.
Thomas and the Library Lady is my favorite because he imagines the pictures in the book, and my favorite over here is, wait, what? What is her name again?
Nia.
Nia, because she makes books for everybody in the world, even though they're not perfect.
Thank you so much, Junie. I loved talking to you today.
What I love about Wit and Wisdom is the topics, because we learned about the Civil Rights Act, the West, and the seasons, and we also get to be in groups with our friends, and it's just really fun sometimes.
What do you like about Wit and Wisdom the most?
I like how you can learn stuff, and I like how you can learn about like the main question of all of the module that you're doing.
And what has your favorite module been?
Space.
And what have you learned about space that you've really enjoyed?
I liked learning about how we were landing on the moon.
And what do you like most about Wit and Wisdom when you're doing it in class?
I like how you can learn stuff when you're doing one module. I like how you learn about that one topic of the module.
Thanks, Julie.
What Wit and Wisdom has taught me is how to write different types of writing. My favorite is opinion because it's taught me how to like write freely. My favorite thing about Wit and Wisdom is when my teachers make it fun, like mix and mingles. And my favorite book we have read is Shark Attack because I like the sea and sharks.
My name's Katie Sarah. I am a kindergarten teacher at the Hannah Elementary School. I think that knowledge-based instruction has changed my instruction with students in many different ways. I think the way I have devoted time to language skills and building vocabulary is just one example. We spend a lot of time practicing how to deliver a clear verbal message, whether it's about our opinions or to share information. We have learned how to support our thoughts with evidence from anchor charts that we have created together and from the books that we read. This has led to richer class discussions, better student engagement, and has also improved our written messages because we practice verbally so much. Using a knowledge-based curriculum has also allowed me to spend time building a robust vocabulary. It is my hope that the stronger vocabulary will allow more children to have better reading comprehension skills now and in the future. And finally, using a knowledge-based program has allowed me to support playful learning experiences by providing me with thematic activities to support all learning. I have observed the carryover of language and vocabulary skills during our playful learning choice time. It makes me feel good that the children are able to make their own connections and apply their knowledge when interacting with their peers. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Heather Dempsey, and I am a kindergarten teacher at the Hannah School. Using a knowledge-based curriculum has shifted my instruction because we are emphasizing in-depth knowledge and building a solid foundation for students' academic careers. I have witnessed students connect and activate schema to make sense of classroom discussion and content. When it comes time for a new Wit and Wisdom book, students cheer and can't wait to see what adventure they will be taken on next.
Okay, so I think that when I reflect on Wit and Wisdom, on year 3 of implementation, first year being in 4th grade and then 2 years in 3rd grade, I've been able to see how the students benefit from building a deeper understanding of like the real world and real world units and modules. For example, for grade 3, we talk very deeply about the ocean and the food chain, and being able to stay on one topic for a longer time really gets student engagement, and they get a stronger sense of ownership over their own learning. They're excited to talk about the different vocabulary words that they're able to learn, and talk to their family members about just their knowledge. So knowledge building is just so amazing with Wit and Wisdom. Unit 2 is outer space, and that is just so exciting to see them really love the topic. And then we go into a new home, and that's module 3. So it's really, really awesome to be able to bring in like current events in history, stay on something for a long period of time, and then be able to pull in enrichment with that for those learners that want to know more. So we kind of do like a flipped classroom model a lot of the time, where I'll send some comprehension passages home. I'll say, read it with your family members, see what they know about it, ask them about certain dates. There are things that they can really just kind of like be excited to talk about. So I really enjoyed that part of this science of reading and the background knowledge building with Wit and Wisdom. And then I think this year 3, feeling so much more comfortable to bring in those parts of reading that I think students might not get from it. So I feel more comfortable to bring in like technology. We used Padlet to do their end of module task and make it more my own. So year 3, I've been able to do a lot of that, which makes me feel better about my teaching, and feel like more like myself and not just reading the manual. So overall, it's been really great to see the students. And I think most importantly, year 3, they're seeing it a little differently because we're all so much more comfortable with it. They're more comfortable, and they kind of trust this different way of doing reading. And you know, I did say to them at the beginning of the year, keep an open mind. It may feel a little different. We're going to bring in some things. And I think they're walking away now saying, you know what, I really do like it. So that's been exciting.
I've seen it evolve from building to building and grade level to grade level, and you guys are doing a great job, and so we really appreciate it, and we're really happy and pleased with the implementation. It was a long process from adoption, not only selection to adoption to implementation, so it's been a long road, and I think a really worthwhile one, and I think we're seeing it in our student outcomes and in our teacher reflections, so that's awesome. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for that great presentation.
And now let me get back to the other slide. Deck. And now we have the Beverly Middle School and Beverly High School presentations. And so we'll start with Lauren, who's coming up, and she's going to talk with us all about the Beverly Middle School.
Yeah.
Is this a separate slide deck that opens?
Yeah, it should,
Of course it
hopefully.
is.
Hi,
There it is.
everybody.
It
I'm Lauren Oxford. I'm the Humanities Curriculum Director at Beverly Middle School. Super excited to talk to you about year 1 and 2 for grade 5 and year 1 for grade 6-8. So some highlights for grade 5, which, as you heard, we have been implementing Wit and Wisdom. You'll see some overlap and similarities because we had similar grant funding. So we are in year 2 of implementation. As Cynthia and the other coaches mentioned, we have one of our proudest, I think, moments is we're implementing continuous writing models, K-8. And I have to say, having been administering MCAS for the last several weeks already, it's absolutely paying off, and we're super excited of the progress already. You also heard that we have implemented a knowledge building approach to ELA instruction, so students are immersed in that topic, as you heard from them, and you heard from some friends tonight as well, for several weeks and months on end, and they're really, everything they're learning is about that same topic. Year one focus, so last year for grade 5 was really our survival year, as we called it. They were focused on understanding the curriculum components, and thanks to a lot of PD, which I'll speak about in a moment, they are soaring, and I'm so beyond proud of my grade 5 teachers and support staff. We had some PD on planning with a focus on urgency and pacing through that grant that was mentioned for the HQIM grant, which just did volumes of help for our teachers and myself included. Our year 2 focus, so currently this school year, we are really focusing, after reflecting on year 1, on independent mastery and transfer of writing. So you heard Cynthia and the other coaches mention kiddos being able to take their graphic organizer in the beginning of the year, get to the point now where you give them a blank piece of paper, they read that prompt, they know exactly what to do, and we've seen it firsthand the last several weeks during testing and every day, and it's really amazing what they can do. We are also working on productive struggle and reducing that scaffolding, allowing our students to soar and kind of stepping back so they can be the masters of their learning for this year. So far in grade 5, we've completed or working on completing modules 1 through 3, which was our goal. The first year, in order for teachers to be more comfortable, we focused on modules 1 and 2 so they could really learn the pacing, adjust to delivering this new curriculum. And then this year, I actually ran a PLC after school where teachers are getting ready to prepare for Module 3, so that will be new for our grade 5 teachers this year. Through the course of this year and last year, they'll have read 4 core novels in grade 5 with a variety of topics. Some of our professional development, which you heard earlier, because it was K-8 or some K-5, we started off with what does knowledge-based ELA curriculum look like and how do we implement this? How is this different from a more skills-focused approach? We had some awesome professional development through Great Minds where they let us launch an intro session multi-day to really dig into the curriculum. And then, as you heard, we had some writing, testing, and fluency PD also through Wit and Wisdom, and we were also part of that coaching series, which really let me become an expert along with my fellow literacy coaches. So all of us K-5 knew how to really dig in and best support our teachers. So it was helpful for teachers, but also for coaches, directors, and our administrators as well. Additionally, in the day-to-day and month-to-month, we run module and lesson study protocols, so our teachers are continually digging into the curriculum. It's not just a one and done, they're refining their practice so they can be better and better. We also had wonderful PD with pacing and urgency, and one of my favorite things to do, and I think teachers as well, is those cross classroom learning blocks where they can learn from each other. So, these people can speak better than I can about this. I have some guests here with me today. So we have 2 very brave 5th graders, Sadie and Nora, and Mr. George, and they are going to speak on behalf of students and teachers. So if we could please welcome them up. Come on up, friends.
Come on up.
Hi, my name is Sadie Schaffner and I'm a 5th grader at BMS. As a student in my 3rd year using Wit and Wisdom, one of the most important things that the program has taught me is how to respectfully disagree and agree with classmates in places like Socratic Seminar, a fishbowl, or just in class. I think this is a really important life skill. What I like most about Wit and Wisdom is the way that it lets us read and try new books. My favorite book that I have read in Wit and Wisdom is Hatchet by Gary Paulson because it was fiction, which is my favorite genre, and the backstory of Brian and his family. This year in 5th grade, we read The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster, and I enjoyed it because Juster creates such creative characters using wordplay, and I've never read a book like that. One thing I wish Wit and Wisdom had is more fun group projects, like posters and presentations. We've been able to do a figurative language poster and a dodecahedron. Pronounce that.
It's a mouthful. You're doing great.
And the characters in about the characters in the Phantom Tollbooth. But my classmates and I would love more fun projects like that. In addition to the books I like to read, I like that the program has taught us to use the correct organizers for writing stories or informative writing. This helps us be prepared for any time we need to write. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Nora Kelly, and I am also a 5th grader at BMS. Wit and Wisdom has taught me all the things I need to know about reading and writing. If I wasn't taught Wit and Wisdom, I don't know if I'd be as good at reading and writing as I am now. In 5th grade especially, I have learned a lot of valuable information on reading and writing, which makes sense, as it is important to know more the older you get, and my teachers have done an amazing job at teaching me all these things. My favorite thing in Wit and Wisdom is writing, specifically writing narratives. I love doing this because I can use my imagination and creativity to write something amazing while learning a lot about story development and writing in general. I've also progressed a lot since past years, and I've produced some of my best writing thus far. It's also fun to experiment with different points of view in writing, like first person, third person, etc. My favorite book from Wit and Wisdom was probably either Hatchet or The Honest Truth. This is because they both have a lot of suspense and plot twists and all the good things that an interesting story needs, especially for it to be interesting to a kid. Although I also like the topics we are exploring in 5th grade, such as figurative language. The book that we are working on now, called The Phantom Tollbooth, has a lot of figurative language, which makes it interesting to read.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Valerie DeGeorge. I am a second-year 5th grade teacher here at the middle school. When Lauren asked me to come and speak before you, I thought, sure, but I wanted to share with you the ideas and the thoughts from all of the 5th grade teachers. So I've written down some of the ideas that they've expressed that they've liked most about this curriculum. I mean, I think one of the biggest takeaways we have all in common is an appreciation for the common curriculum that we're using, because it brings to the 5th graders essential questions and focus questions, which we have a confidence that the kids are all receiving the same level of instruction. It's important to us that that is standardized across the grade level. We also recognize the benefit of the vertical instruction, something that you've heard a great deal about tonight. I think the thing that we appreciate the most is that in the kids, we see a confidence in them. We see a comfort level in them because they're sitting down to what they feel is new, and then they're presented with something that is familiar. Some of the learning strategies that they've been practicing, that they've learned in the previous years, they're hearing from us, so they have the ability to focus in on the content, the 5th grade skills, because they're familiar with some of the strategies. I mean, I can tell you from my own experience, I think it was like September, maybe early October, Lisa Oliver walked into my classroom with Mayor Cahill. And I thought, okay, this is going to be interesting because we were about to do a fishbowl for the very first time. And truthfully, I didn't even know what it was going to look like. Yet the kids were able to transition quickly. They were able to get into their roles fairly seamlessly. We had already talked about what a collaborative conversation would look like. They knew the norms of that because they had heard it previously. They knew what a fishbowl was supposed to function like. So their conversation was easily and seamlessly focused in on the topic that they were supposed to be discussing. I think one of the teachers had already said that she's recognizing that her kids feel more confident because they're approaching lessons with something that they're familiar with. It's a joy to see how easily the kids are engaging because they're already coming to us with some level of familiarity. I mean, I think one of the things that I appreciate the most is the rigor with Wit and Wisdom. It's dense and it's fast-paced, and there's a lot in each module's lessons. one of the things that I think was a concern was the fact that there is not a lot of differentiation in the instruction that is provided for the special education teachers. But with that said, one of the things that I've recognized is that all learning styles are able to be met with wit and wisdom. I mean, every module hits with nonfiction text, chapter books. It hits with skits, videos, picture books. They have small group instruction, whole class discussions, Socratic seminars. So we feel as though while there's a lot of scaffolding that's done for the kids to meet students with special education concerns, all learning styles are being addressed, and therefore that concern is also being met. I feel one of my favorite things about Wit and Wisdom that I'll share personally is the content that is being addressed through the chapter books that the kids are learning and reading. So we're working with them on historical fiction and fantasy and nonfiction, but what we're reading about is history. So I love teaching social studies. I mean, I consider myself a social studies geek, proudly. One of the things that we're talking to the kids about is the displacement of Native Americans. We're coming up on our third unit, which is going to be talking about Civil War and the legacy of slavery. These are really hard topics for kids, especially 10-year-olds, and they're approaching it in a meaningful way because they're making these text-to-world connections with protagonists and characters who are their age. So they're learning about the lens of history through these characters who are personal to them. It ties back into wit and wisdom because they're making these deep, meaningful connections. They're way more invested in their writing than they might have been had they not had those opportunities with these chapter books. And so they're heavily invested in the topic development, and they're heavily invested in what they're writing about, whether it's a to-seek paragraph in nonfiction or whether they're writing, extending a story and writing about the characters that they're reading about. I think that as teachers, we feel as though that this curriculum is meeting the kids at the grade level that they're at and at the developmental level that they're at. I mean, I wasn't here 2 years ago when this curriculum was researched, but I can't imagine that there is anything more that this program could have promised that it's not already delivering on. And again, if I can leave you with anything, it is that we as teachers see that the kids are walking away confident. They're walking away, they're coming in confident, they're walking away confident, that they're far more engaged and heavily more invested in what they're doing, and that they therefore feel more proud. They're seeing their progress, they're seeing the difference between what they did at fourth grade to fifth grade. They're seeing the difference in what they did at the beginning of a module to the end of the module, and that sense of accomplishment is really driving their growth as much as what we are doing as teachers and what the curriculum is doing itself. So I give it to the curriculum that's happening.
I just want to give a huge thank you to Sadie, Nora, and Mr. George for those words. It was a very brave thing to do, especially for our fifth grade students. So speaking of confidence,
Yes.
thank you so much. And Valerie, thank you. So we're going to shift gears a little bit now and talk about our additional curriculum that we use in grades 6 through 8. So last year, about this time exactly, I presented to the school committee to adopt our grades 6 through 8 novel studies, which are published through a company called Reading Reconsidered. And we are well underway of our year 1 of adoption and implementation. So there's some similarities that we had as non-negotiables to incorporate these novel studies because they are that. It's a reading program. They are novel studies. We're reading whole novels. So the first thing that we decided to do was to continue that writing progression from 5th grade up through 6, 7, and 8. So you will see that our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are using the same writing common language and common rubrics, which we had to do a lot of work to adopt that and build that. And we're still working towards, perfecting that. Of course, it's only year 1. This resource is also knowledge-based approach. So as I mentioned, the students in 6, 7, and 8 are reading full novels, and they are supplemented with nonfiction embellishments, which are just excerpts, vocabulary, et cetera, to build all of that knowledge around that novel and topic that they're reading, and that the topics vary, of course. Our year 1 focus, which we are still in, is to understand the curriculum components to survive year 1 of implementation. Our teachers have worked really hard. We had some professional development last May for 2 days over at Endicott, which was wonderful, from the publishers, where we had some modeling of the curriculum components and protocols, instructional practices, and our teachers were really able to dig in those days over the summer and then throughout this entire year with unit unpacking, common planning, et cetera, et cetera. It's a ton of work, and I have to give a lot to the teachers, a huge amount of credit. Our year 2 focus, which will be next year, so forward thinking, as a reflection of talking to many teachers, and talking with our leadership here and across the district, writing is a huge focus area that we need to continue to build upon. And a huge component of that is that vertical alignment. So yes, we have our language that's common K-8. We have our rubrics also that are common K-8, which I should say come through Great Minds. So it's that publisher of Wit and Wisdom that works seamlessly into this novel study curricula. However, it was a huge adjustment for our teachers to shift their language, shift rubrics, and kind of build that common practice. So that's going to be the focus for next year, and we will continue to work to perfect that over the next few years. That being said, we have implemented common assessments through these novel studies and common rubrics that our teachers have worked across grade level teams and content teams to unpack those assessments and really perfect use of those rubrics. Along the same lines, we have had collaborative planning sessions and unit unpacking. And each grade level is reading 3 to 4, depending on their pacing and kind of students progress through the novels, 3 to 4 rigorous, highly engaging novels in year 1 already. So we're really excited about that. Professional development for Reading Reconsidered, we, again, same as 5th grade, started with what is a knowledge building ELA, how do we implement this, and especially for those grades, the shift from skills focused to knowledge building was, I think, a little bit greater than our 5th grade. Because before that, we didn't really have across all grades and all classrooms, a core common resource. So it was a large shift for them. I'm happy to say that they're on the train and they're working very hard to continue to build that learning. As mentioned, we had our intro session through Reading Reconsidered, but our teachers, similar to 5th grade, as we know, implementation, it's learning through every unit and reflecting also after units on how they went. So we had unit and assessment, unpacking protocols. We're still doing them. We did some this afternoon, as I mentioned. And that writing PD and alignment is still really a huge focus. In the fall and as well as the winter, teachers were able to participate in grade level sessions where we had real student work. They could use a rubric, a common rubric, depending on the genre, and collaboratively grade, meaning we all graded independently, came back, talked through, and came to a consensus. And that's the kind of thing that we have to continue to do to make sure everyone's comfortable with this shift in writing as well. Of course, there wouldn't be without challenges for year 1, 2, and 3, really continued of adoption. I've mentioned some of them. Adjusting to a common curriculum in a large school, of course, is a challenge. Streamlining those grading protocols is another area that we're focused on with the rubrics and things like that. Pacing, especially in year 1 when teachers are learning a curriculum and students have adjusted through years of piloting as well, shifting language, protocols, processes. Continue time for vertical meetings and increase writing, as mentioned, is our big focus. So these are continued challenges. It's only year 1. We're doing a great job, and I expect to see those things adjust next year, the years forward. So we have also, as I mentioned, and this is a little bit of a repeat, I have some great pictures, though, of instruction that I was able to see, which are kind of small, and I apologize. But this is just kind of speaking to that writing is our big focus, continued through K-8 over the next couple of years, and we hope to see that continued progress. So similar to 5th grade, it would be remiss if I didn't have some 6th to 8th grade speakers here. So we have Gabby and Emilio, who are 8th grade students. I also have to shout out that Emilio was my second grader, so I'm a very proud, proud former teacher here. This is awesome. And we have Jess McGrath, who will speak, Lady McGrath, who will speak on behalf of 8th grade. So Gabby, come on up.
Great. Right on it.
Good evening. I'm 8th grader Gabby Ahern, and I've been taught the current English curriculum since 7th grade. In 7th grade, we read A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park, The Wanderings of Odysseus by Rosemary Sutcliffe, and The Giver by Lois Lowry. So far in 8th grade, we've read The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. We are currently reading The Night by Elie Wiesel, which is his memoir of the Holocaust. To start, the emphasis on vocabulary is a great part of the program because I'm noticing my friends and I using the words a lot more in public and can understand them when I hear them in the news. I also like that I have the option of using paper copies to complete my work, or I can do it on the iPad. I personally prefer paper. I find that doing my work on paper is a nice break from the screen, and writing with my hand helps me retain the information a lot better. We're definitely doing a lot more writing this year, which I think prepared me for the ELA MCAS test. In class, we have a chance to think and write the answers down first, so we feel more comfortable responding during discussion time. I get to work with my table think partners, take turns reading out loud, and complete an exit ticket that always matches the lesson's objective. I will admit that we always try to get Lady McGrath just to read it to us, though. I feel as an overall, the program's positives outweigh any negatives it may have, and attending English class has made me feel like I'm always learning new things and pushing myself academically.
Thank you. And Emilio.
Good afternoon. My name is Emilio Guevara, and I'm in the 8th grade. I've found that the 8th grade ELA curriculum has caught my attention for the most part, despite me thinking that I have a pretty specific taste for genres of books. I have found myself enjoying The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, which was the first book that we read in the 8th grade. This book got me so invested that I read another book by S.E. Hinton titled That Was Then, This Was Now. I read this book independently as my book choice for our independent reading project. I also plan on bringing another Hinton book to read after completing MCAS. As you can tell, The Outsiders interested me a lot. There were a lot of aspects of it that I liked, such as watching each of the characters develop and getting to know each one so well, because it got me very invested. The book that we are currently reading, Night by Elie Wiesel, is holding my interest as well. There are some parts of it I like, such as the writing style of Wiesel and the realistic tone. I find some parts extremely interesting, even though I never used to like nonfiction. With all of the books, the lesson plans are engaging and consistent in my opinion. One packet every 2 days is a good amount of work, and the homework is about the right level of a challenge for me. I also like the do-nots at the beginning of each lesson because it gives some more background information. I like how the packets lead class discussion, and the vocabulary practices are sometimes interesting and always helpful for reading the book. Some words are very simple, but most are helpful to make sure we understand. Overall, the English curriculum is great.
Thank you, Emilio. All right. And Lady McGrath.
Hi, my name is Jessica McGrath, commonly known as Lady McGrath. I was very impressed by everyone's ability to go off script, but I wrote a speech, so I'm going to use my finger. I'm one of the 8th grade ELA teachers here at the middle school. I've been teaching in Beverly for the past 20 years and have taught everything from 6th grade reading, MCAS math, 7th grade ELA, and have been teaching 8th grade ELA since moving here from Briscoe. I was involved in the curriculum search and piloting program that looked at wit and wisdom, HMH, and Reading Reconsidered. We ultimately decided on Reading Reconsidered because of its knowledge-based curriculum that develops student background knowledge and gives an increased understanding of important ideas and concepts that they will likely encounter in the future. Some of the highlights include a consistent, structured lesson delivered in 3 to 4 cycles to break up the reading and discussion, explicit vocabulary instruction that is assessed and used throughout the reading, and a plethora of additional resources that we as the educators can use to enrich any of these given lessons. Students have been engaged with the reading and rising to the rigor of what this curriculum offers. Reading Reconsidered is both challenging and age-appropriate. We encourage students discourse daily, write in reflection consistently, and students respond to both formative and summative check-ins for understanding along the way. Overall, the curriculum has been well received by my 8th grade students who have adapted to the routines nicely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to our 6th and 8th grade, 8th grade, 6th through 8th representatives and teachers, and appreciate the time.
And thank you to you for your leadership there, because it is a big undertaking to balance two different implementations in different years and in different places. And so it is a huge job, and you're doing it amazing. And I know that the outcomes for our students is really about that. So thank you for everything that you're doing,
Happy to
too.
do it.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
thank you to
everybody.
all of you that spoke so far, because that is a really big job. So Valerie, thank you. And
Thank you.
Jessica, thank you so much. All right, and now Mr. Paul Casey is going to join us with 9 through 12.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for having me. I can say it's going to be difficult to follow the elementary and middle school presenters, but I will do my best. Unfortunately, I have some pie charts and data to present to you. So I don't know how well I'm going to do, but I'm here to talk about the texts that we have implemented at the high school for now our second full year. We started in I have a timeline here. We started in 2021, 2022, actually, before I took on this role, with a diversifying text committee. That committee was made up of English teachers, grades 9 through 12, taking a look at the texts that we currently had in the curriculum and trying to diversify them by adding in texts that our diverse student population would be able to see themselves in. They had the challenge of adding new texts while trying to maintain classics that existed in there, archaic texts, and balancing them grade to grade to develop themes, which I think they did a really, really nice job on. So in 2022, school year 22-23, the members of that text committee piloted all of the texts that were eventually added into the curriculum in various sections of the classes that they had. They then got feedback from students, teacher feedback, and came up with a final set of new texts to be added to each grade. 2 years ago, actually almost to this meeting's day, I presented that to the school committee for approval, which you all graciously did approve, and we implemented that in full in 23-24 just last year. This year, we've continued adjustments by grade and grade level PLCs, focusing on scope and sequence, as well as aligning reading standards to each specific text. And recently, which is what I'm going to share with you tonight, we surveyed almost 500 of our students on what they thought of the texts in the curriculum that they've been reading. So this was one of the first questions we asked our students is, when you entered Beverly High School, did you consider yourself a reader? And we can see that only 36% of our student body said yes to that, whereas 63% or close to 64% said no. And this is one of the things that we really wanted to try to tackle at Beverly High School was not only to get our students reading, because we know that even if they didn't consider themselves a reader, well, you're going to read in class, but to develop a culture of reading where students would not only read the text that they read in class, but also aim to read outside of the classroom. So this is a quote, and it's anecdotal evidence that I had been speaking with our school librarian, Barb Fecto, about just, hey, what have you been seeing in the library? Because as you know, with this new diversifying text group and bringing new text into the school, we also have brought enough books in of those certain texts that every student can have one and bring it home and bring it throughout the school. So one of the things that I asked Barb was, what have you been seeing in the library? And she provided me with this quote that she's noticed a marked change in the number of kids who are reading physical books in the library, and it gives her an opportunity not only to go up and speak with them about the text that they're interacting with, but also about reading in general. And overall, it's been a pretty positive experience for her. So one of the next questions we asked our students was, again, we started with, did you consider yourself a reader when you entered Beverly High School? How many books have you read outside of the books that you've had to read for class? And as you can see here, that despite almost 65% of our students saying that they didn't consider themselves a reader, 72% have read at least one book outside of class this year. And I know, in today's day and age with scheduling with teenagers, I think even reading one book outside of class, they can consider themselves a reader. As we can see here, over 40% or almost 40%, of students have read at least 3 books outside of class. And then this question overall, have you enjoyed the texts that you've read while at Beverly High School? And almost 70% of our student body has said that they've enjoyed it. So again, where we had 64% of our students or 65% of our students saying that they didn't consider themselves a reader, almost 70% of our students said that they thoroughly enjoyed reading the books in school. So this slide, I'm sorry it's a little small, but it gives you an idea of what the books that our students are reading in each grade are, and then which ones that they enjoyed. So the question was, of all of the books, and we asked 9th through 12th graders, which books did you enjoy reading the most while at Beverly High School? So this is a little bit of a staggered graph, because obviously, 9th graders can only pick 9th grade books, whereas 12th graders could potentially pick all of the books. But we can see, as it stands there, which books the students enjoyed the most. And we can see some of the texts like All American Boys, The Poet X, The Nickel Boys, Educated, All American Born Chinese, Just Mercy. These are a lot of the newer texts that had been added by the Diversifying Text Committee, are some of the books that are widely chosen the most. However, what we also see, which we find interesting, although I did not find it surprising, was a number of the archaic texts like The Odyssey, Romeo and Juliet, Frankenstein, Macbeth, Twelfth Night. Those texts are also chosen quite a bit, which goes to show that we've brought in modern books and with modern ideas and diversified the text, which is what we really wanted to do. But there is also a place for the classics and archaic texts within the curriculum. So we felt that this gives the students a really nice, diverse look at reading, and one that we're proud to see that they've been enjoying. We did poll the students. I'm going to put some individual quotes up there from students, but this is just a word cloud of the words that came up the most. And we said, what did you like the most about the books that you read in school this year? So we see words like interesting, entertaining, enjoyed, think, understand, modern. Really, the words that stuck out to me the most were interesting and entertaining, because I know that there are books that we have to read for school, there are classes that we have to take for school, but we all know that when you're reading a book that you find entertaining and interesting, you are more likely to enjoy it and continue to read it and understand it. So again, I apologize for the size of the font here, but these are some of the quotes, individual quotes from our students. And again, we polled over 500 students, so I went through and picked out some that really stood out to me and represented the books themselves, or excuse me, the feedback itself. And some of it, you see, we see words like diversity, inclusion, perspectives, understanding background. We can see some of the texts themselves highlighted. I think this one, most young women can read The Poet X and relate to at least one thing in it. I think All American Boys was the most relatable and enjoyable book we've read all year. Or some, strong quotes from students. The one that stood out to me the most was this one, which is, usually I have a hard time getting into school books because they usually don't interest me, but these ones I actually enjoyed. And on the surface, that doesn't sound like the most ringing endorsement of our our curriculum, but it was representative of the students that we really wanted to identify. And it's embodied in that quote. Students that come into Beverly High School that might not enjoy reading or don't find it interesting, but can pick up the books that we're offering and say, no, I like this book, I can read it. And then hope that that continues to develop, again, that culture of reading moving forward and getting them to be some of those students that, hey, check 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 books that they've read outside of the books they read for class. Which leads to this quote from a parent that was sent to one of our 9th grade freshman academy teachers. And it says, I'll read it. I just wanted to tell you that for the first time ever, our son told us tonight all about a book he's read in school. He loves All American Boys. Thank you. Again, it speaks to that type of student, a student that, didn't read before, didn't talk to their parents about reading before, and picks up a book at Beverly High School, brings it home, and talks about it at dinner. Which leads us to our very exciting MCAS data. So again, I'm presenting some data that we've received recently. I feel like I might be stealing a little bit of Dr. Flaherty's thunder in the future.
No, steal
here.
away. She loves it. Go.
But this is something that we're really, really proud of. And of course, we can't make a direct correlation between the text that we've brought in, the culture of reading we're trying to establish, and our MCAS scores. But it is one of the variables that exists with our accountability. Among them are our incredible teachers, the PLC work that our teachers have done to align standards, the work that they've done on these texts themselves, and the excitement they bring to the classroom. And I wanted to go back. I mentioned texts like Romeo and Juliet, the Odyssey, and Frankenstein, and having the ability to sit in those classes with those teachers on a regular basis and watch what they do with those texts is really bringing out the joy and learning of even those classics with our students. So again, there's a lot of variables that go into these scores, but they're scores we're really, really proud of, and want to highlight that reading is one of the largest variables we think that have led to this. So basically this is our basic accountability scores, and we can see an achievement and growth. So in achievement across the board, we scored 4 out of a possible 4 points, and in growth, we scored 3 out of a possible 4 points. So out of a total of 8 points as a school for reading and literature, reading, comprehension, and writing, we scored a total of 7 out of 8 points when it comes to accountability. And if we go to the detailed view of that,
Before you go, I just want to point out
Okay.
that there's 2 columns, all students, and then our lowest performing students. Desi pulls out the lowest 25, the lowest quartile, percentile, and that is amazing. And I do think that engagement piece is really.
Yes.
I just want to keep bragging about that, because it's really good.
So now Dr. Chirocek stole a little bit of my thunder because it was on my next slide, but that's okay. That's
That's
okay.
'cause we both
We'll
like
take
data.
we'll take it all
That's 'cause
from
we
Dr.
like
Flaherty.
data.
So anyway, so we can see here that this is our comparative data from 2024 compared to 2023, and it breaks it down into subgroups, with the aggregate being 20. So any subgroup that we have more than 20 students in, it gives us a target for moving forward. So we can see the subgroups and the numbers there, and then the targets to the right. To point out, if we go to all students, we had an achievement score of 504.2. And then if you look under reason, it says recovery path. And then below that, it'll say path forward. What recovery path is if we hadn't met the numbers pre-COVID, so from our 2019 numbers, we stay in a recovery path and continue to try to meet that target moving forward. We stay in a recovery path until we reach our achievement from our 2019 numbers. So we have been below our 2019 numbers post-COVID, I believe up until this year. So our 2019 achievement numbers were actually 504. So we've exceeded our achievement numbers post-COVID. So this is a representation now that, at least in our reading comprehension and writing, we've really made an effort and closed that COVID gap that we've so constantly talked about. Now, the other numbers that we're really proud of, as Dr. Chirocek said, are our lowest performing students. So you can see there that we're in the path forward. So we have been above our pre-COVID numbers in that subgroup. However, our growth in that subgroup was pretty amazing. So we see the 6.5 point change up from 478 to 484.5. And I think that really does speak to the engagement that we've seen in the classroom, where the bottom 25% of our achievement from our students has grown that much. And again, I've kind of tried to make that a theme throughout this presentation, that we love our students that come in, obviously, and they are readers from the start, and they enjoy our texts that we've provided for them and continue to be readers and grow as readers. But looking at the students that come in and say, I'm not a reader and I don't like to read, but these books are okay. Those are the students that we're going to see a lot of growth with when it comes to achievement, that we're really, really proud of. So,
Ready?
And that's it.
Oh, all right. We'll go back to that one and leave that one up there.
So
thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Paul, thank you very much. I just want to say, again, just like the implementation of the more formalized curricula from K to 8 at the high school, this has been a journey. It was a 4 to 5 year process. That whole work that has been done and driven by curriculum directors at the high school, I think that it really does show the value that adds to us to have folks that are able to support the teachers, because the teachers are doing this heavy lifting of implementing, and changing some of this curriculum. So the work that you've done, thank you. I appreciate that. And,
thank you.
And then before I go, and she's not here, but honestly and truly, I would be remiss if I don't talk about Dr. Flaherty, because her work the last 6 years as the assistant superintendent, I mean, as you all know, she's retiring at the end of this year, has been a labor of love. The work that she has done, it could not have been done without her. She has dedicated her time and her effort, and her people who come to her office every month. I see them hanging in her office and doing all the work. You know, it's been a real labor of love, and I think the best thing is it has such positive outcomes for our students in Beverly. So I just shout out to Dot. She's home tonight because but she'll be back next week.
Yeah.
You're still there? See, honey, I love you. So thank you for everything that you've done, and I just wanted to make sure that we pointed that out. So,
I just quickly jump in for 1 second. I texted you and I just said, this is one of my proudest moments since I've been here. And I'm so proud of our teachers and coaches and directors. And this really has been a labor of love. And to see it come to fruition tonight is making me feel much better while I'm home.
Awesome.
And just to thank our students were so eloquent, and I'm so proud of everybody. And thank you for all the work you did to bring tonight's presentation forward.
So thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is the information that we brought forward around that. We have a couple of other items. It is 7:30. I'll look to both Rachel and Dr. McKenzie.
Really quickly, actually, could we follow up a little bit on the presentation?
Follow up?
Yeah.
That's depending on the time.
We actually have two policies we were supposed to review tonight, and I realize we also don't have time for questions, unfortunately.
Fair enough.
from
Can
our
I put a pin in this then to
So-
revisit for next meeting?
So what we can do, I don't know who's here who can answer the question.
Sorry.
It might be a good idea to follow up with Dr. Flaherty
Sure.
on some of these questions we might have.
Just forward
It was
them
so
along,
great.
and
How
she'll-
do you cut children off? Like it's one of those.
I'm never gonna, or good data.
Keep
So
going.
there's children and good data. I'm
Yes,
never going to stop
yes.
either one of those.
So I appreciate that. I believe the policy piece should be relatively quick. So we're required to do these on a certain timeline. So I do want to make sure we have it so we don't hold up the other committee. So.
And I was
if you
told
can
by
open those, that would be.
Yep, I was told by Dr. Flaherty that there are no major changes in either of these policies, just a slight wording change in one. But I will just go through it. First of all, one is IB, academic freedom, and the policy is the same as MASC's, and the recommendation is to mark it as reviewed and maintain the current policy language. I think you all got it in your packet earlier, so you would have a chance to review it if anybody has any particular questions. And then the second policy that we're going to review is the IGB support services program. Our language varies slightly between the Beverly policy and MASC, but the sentiments are the same and they're encompassed in our Beverly policy. We use an introductory sentence that is not an MASC but doesn't alter the intent. And in paragraph 2, our policy expands the role of assistant superintendent to include or designee. That's the one minor change in the difference between the two. And then, again, the recommendation is to mark it as reviewed and maintain our current policy language. I will quickly see if there's any questions on any of that. So if that is not the case, motions are written for you up here. Anyone that would like to make a motion to do both of those things, we're ready to go.
So moved as a collection.
Second.
Thank you.
So then you have to do a roll call.
Okay, so we'll do the roll call here on that. Sorry about that. Okay. Rachel Abel?
Yes.
Karen Robinson? Yes. Dr. Flaherty? Still there?
Yes.
Okay. Derek Brennan?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Trocheck?
I don't vote.
I know. You just
That's okay. Yep. But I'm here.
on my list.
Yep.
It's easier than skipping. Katie Kraft?
Yes.
Patricia Spinks? Do you ever join? Okay. Okay. Ryan Redmond?
Yes.
Okay. Our students are not here. And Casey Fiore, I know you're
non-voting.
Present, yes, here.
Yes. Okay, so the motion passes with that vote. So,
I don't know if you want to just mention our next two meetings,
yep.
May 14th and June 11th.
Yep, so we have two more meetings left in the year, May 14th, June 11th. And with that, I'd like to.
Yeah,
I would
motion to adjourn.
Yes, have a second. Okay, so we'll call the roll again for the adjournment. Okay, Rachel Abel?
Yes.
Karen Robinson? Yes. Dr. Flaherty?
Yes.
Derek Brennan.
Yes.
Let's see, I might skip down. Ryan Redmond.
Yes.
Okay, and the others are present, and I'm Dr. Kanan Mackenzie DeFranza. Yes. Okay. I leave anyone out for the vote?
I didn't hear Katie, but I saw her come off mute.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Katie. All right, and with that, we're going to be adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Beverly School Committee. Tonight is already April 9th, 2025. This is a regular school committee meeting, and I'm just going to start off by explaining that we do have a hybrid remote option running tonight, but all of us are here in person. We do provide real-time access to the community, and this is thanks in part to the extension of the acts of Chapter 20 Acts of 2021. Most recently, on March 28th, 2025, Governor Healy signed into law a bill that extends until June 30th, 2027, the ability for public bodies to use safe methods of remote participation for our meetings, to suspend the need for a quorum and the chair to be physically present. And also, I will remind you that Beverly has the ability for remote participation, although when these acts expire June 30th, 2027, the chair and quorum will need to be physically co-located and open to the public. So tonight is a regular school committee meeting. It does mean that there is an opportunity for the public to address the body. We have a sign-up sheet on the table right there. And we also invite residents to email us in advance if they're interested in signing up, either for an approximate 3-minute address to the body, or if they want to send any remarks that are approximately 3 minutes for the chair to read into the record. If that's something that interests you in the future, please know that the email address is residentvoice@beverlyschools.org, and we do ask that you provide your name and address for the record. And again, limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Joining us today are members of the school committee. We have various members of the district leadership team as well, and many participants are also joining us online. I'm going to do a roll call in a minute just so everyone can have a complete picture of our role. I would ask that anyone who is participating remotely do use the mute functionality, as anything that you say will become part of our recording and part of the record. And I neglected to thank BevCam right at the start. BevCam provides a vital service to us by both streaming and broadcasting our meeting on Channel 6, High Definition 1073, and on their YouTube channel. It also provides a recording after the fact of all of our meetings, so you can, if you miss us on a Wednesday night, you can watch us on a Thursday morning, and I do encourage you to use the 1.75 speed on the playback because it makes our meetings go much quicker. Okay, let me now call the roll. We have Mayor Cahill present.
Here.
And Miss Kimberly Coelho.
Here.
Dr. Kenan Mackenzie DeFranza.
Here.
Ms. Karen Robinson.
Here.
Dr. Jeffrey Silva.
Here.
Miss Lorinda Visnick.
Yes, here.
And I'm Rachel Abel. We're also joined by Dr. Sue Chirochak.
Here.
Online, we have Dr. Dorothy Flaherty.
Here.
And we have Dr. Andre Morgan.
Here.
In person, we have Emma Puglisi.
Here.
Aaron Brown.
Here.
Bethany Splansky.
Here.
And Mark Thomas. And Lisa Oliver.
Here.
And we are also joined by Andrea Sherman online. Did I miss anyone? Oh, Kate, that's right, Kate Twombly, and we have Donna Bergeron and Delia Gauker. I'm like looking right at you guys, and I'm like, anyone else? Okay. Amy Blanchard, okay. Yeah, I think that will do it for the roll. We have first on our agenda the call to order, which we've accomplished, and now a pledge of allegiance. I'm going to ask Miss Robinson this time to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Next, a report from our student representative, Delia Gauker.
Thank you. At the high school, grades for quarter 3 close tomorrow. The National Honor Society and National Art Honor Society will be hosting their induction ceremonies tomorrow at Beverly High School. The National Honor Society is working right now with the Red Cross to coordinate a blood drive where students and teachers can donate at the high school during the school day on April 16th. This Friday, on April 11th, the Dallas Brass Group is coming to do an all-day clinic with the middle and high school concert bands, performing a joint concert that night. Sports seasons continue with all teams holding practices and many sports beginning to hold their first games. This year, in addition to all of the spring sports that have occurred in the past, the unified basketball team added a short spring season. This month, juniors have the opportunity to take the SAT at BHS. DECA students who qualified are competing in Florida this month. There are also some students heading to Spain later this week to learn more about Spanish and get an immersion experience. College visits in the guidance office are continuing this spring, and course selection has concluded and guidance counselors are starting to work on student schedules. Students will have the opportunity to view these before the end of the year. Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is the approval of our meeting records from our March 12th regular school committee meeting.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Dr. Silva. Thank you, Ms. Visnick. Were there any edits or corrections? I think, Ms. Bergeron, you may have had a couple that you've already fixed. Okay. Were there any others? Since we're all in person, all those in favor of approving the meeting records, 7-0. Thank you. And now we've reached the time on our agenda that is an open forum for resident voice or input for agenda-related items. As we state in our agenda, the president will consider requests to address the school committee on items either included or not included as part of this agenda. Any person wishing to make a request should arrive at the posted meeting time in person or email residentvoice@beverlyschools.org before 7 p.m. on the meeting day with their comments, less than 3 minutes, to be read by the chair, or to request to receive a link to remotely access the meeting. And this usually occurs at 7:40 p.m. Again, this is an opportunity to address the body and is not a discussion. Did we have anyone sign up this evening, Ms. Bergeron?
I have not heard from anybody.
And I don't see anyone here in the audience unless you want to speak. Okay. Moving right along, we have our items by consensus. These are 4 warrants, basically paying our bills. They are listed A, B, C, and D. And thank you, Mayor Cahill.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. We generally don't have any questions. All those in favor? 7-0. And next we will move to the superintendent's report. First up, I think we have school choice as the topic first.
On. All right, thank you. We do have 2 items that are on the agenda for the superintendent's report this evening. First is school choice approval, and then the second will be a budget update for FY26. So you may notice that I'm coming forward a little earlier this year on school choice. Typically, we have this at our end of April meeting. This is the beginning of April meeting, so I'm a couple weeks early. But I did that sort of purposeful because I know that we've had some conversations around school choice. It is an annual obligation for the school committee to make a decision as to whether they will participate in school choice, and secondly, at what rate, so how many seats are there going to be available. And we typically in Beverly have looked at it by grade level or by grade span and decided how many seats we would want to open up for school choice each year. So I do have first, you have all received in your packet a copy of the revised school choice parameters, and I hope you've had a chance to sort of look them over, but basically what this is each year we bring forward and tell you how many seats we have previously approved, how many students are currently sitting in the seats, what is our current projected enrollment for the next coming year based on the students who have already been accepted into school choice, and then how many seats does that mean that we have available, and how many requests have we had for the coming school year. I also included a column that tells you what our projected enrollment for the next year would be for that grade level. So this basically shows you how our seats are filled this year. If you look diagonally, you can see that the current students in kindergarten are rolling into year one, unless we've heard otherwise. And so we have varying numbers, but for the most part, we're relatively full for the school choice openings that we had. I had a conversation with Donna. We had, wherever there are vacancies, wondering why they are. Each year, we have a list that exceeds the number of seats that we have available. We accept in that number of students, and, they either matriculate and enroll in the Beverly Public Schools, or, but we do not tend to move beyond that, beyond the school year once it started. So there are students who move either often, and it's very often, we have students who are residing outside of Beverly, anticipating purchasing or renting in Beverly, and so they apply for school choice, their students are enrolled, they subsequently move to Beverly, they're no longer school choice students, so they fall off of the school choice rolls and open up a seat for the next years for consideration. We had that happen in a number of cases this year. We've been tracking who's moved or withdrawn. A couple students may have gone off to private school, or for whatever reason they've left. So this is where we sit right now. We anticipate having 10 students in returnings. These are the returning students. I'm in column D right now. 10 returning in grade 1, 6 returning in grade 2, 10 in grade 3, 8 in grade 4, 8 in grade 5, 9 in grade 6, 7 in grade 7, and 10 in grade 8. And if you look, the next column, column E, will show you how many seats are available, and then how many requests we've received. So one of the conversations we've been talking about both at FNF, we had a prolonged conversation at FNF, I think, about whether or not there's opportunities for us to look at school choice for some, to make increases to some of the grade levels. We would only look to do that if those seats would not impact the staffing and the current enrollment as we see it right now. So first I'd start with, does anybody have any questions about the current sheet as it sits right now? There's an understanding that last year we approved 10 seats in grades K through 8 and 15 seats in grades 9 through 12.
Dr. Silva, and then Mayor Cahill.
Yep.
Can you tell me what the overall cost is?
Microphone.
So it's not a cost, it's a revenue. So we, so we receive in, oh, sorry. Yeah, so Dr. Silver asked what the cost, but it's actually revenue. So each student that arrives comes, and there's a billing cycle that goes through DESE, and we would bill back their sending district, and we receive a base of $5,000 per student, but that base is adjusted based upon if there are additional services required or things like that. So,
And
but the student
does that include transportation?
There is no transportation for school choice students. They do not receive transportation.
Okay.
They cannot, they're not eligible for there's not a transportation factor there.
Okay, great.
And so just to kind of also explain in elementary school, we offer seats where there are openings. So our cohorts, as you've been noticing over the last few weeks that we've been looking at enrollments, vary from building to building. So we might have a building where there's only 65 students in 3 sections, and so there's extra seats available in that building. And so we only accept school choice students and assign them to areas where we have open seats. So there's not an additional cost per se. They're only assigned to where there's an open seat.
Mayor Cahill.
Thanks, Madam President. 2 questions. Dr. Trochik, do we ever decline to accept a student under school choice for any reason if there's an available seat?
We do not. If we vote that we open 10 seats, then we open 10 seats. Right. We fill those 10 seats, but we do not reopen them during the school year. We wait until the following year, so those numbers would go down. The only people who would be declined is if we fill the 10 seats and there were 16 people that were requesting. Those 6 would go on a waiting list. And that waiting list is cycled through in the end of August prior to the opening of school. So there's no, we're not, we
If we
we
have
don't
a
even
seat,
know-
we
It's
don't,
a blind admission.
it's totally blind.
Totally blind admission. There's one exception that siblings are preferred. So you get there's a preference to siblings if you already have siblings in the district. But
thank-
other than that, it's blind.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Separate question. Projected enrollment at present for the ninth grade is 322. Now, I
Well-
know that we get kids who come in from homeschool or other schools
So I'm
that
gonna-
don't go to high school, and I know we have kids that go out. So I'm just trying to understand how that number
That
landed.
number will actually be 270 because that does not include what we anticipate 60 students going out to the tech, and then approximately 10 come in from private schools. So that number, we've been utilizing 270 as our anticipated rising freshman enrollment. But that is the actual number if all of the Beverly students returned, and we haven't received acceptances to the tech yet, so we can't really technically say they're gone.
Okay, so we should be thinking in the range of 270 for
Correct.
that freshman class.
Correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Visnick?
And kind of continuing on from our FNF conversation, as well as looking at these numbers, are you bringing forward a different recommendation?
Well, I'm going to open the option for the school committee to make a different recommendation for your vote. But yes, and Emma and I have done some work. We've taken a look at some of these cohorts. I think an initial recommendation for consideration by the committee tonight would be that you increase from 15 to 20 in the high school, allowing any, because we do have, we know that we have requests that will exceed the number of 15, and we would, anticipate those would be good opportunities for us to increase, and our cohort sizes are low, so we would be, it would be reasonable. It wouldn't cause us to add any additional staff or any costs like that at the between grades 7 to 12. That's what we were looking at.
I had a
Follow-up?
quick, did you have a follow-up?
No, you go.
Okay. I had a quick question, but it may not be based on data, it may be more anecdotal. Do we don't advertise school choice. It's something that just sort of exists and we can participate. Do we have a sense of whether we get most requests from families who move out of Beverly and want to keep their kids in school, or do we get them from staff or support staff or people who work in Beverly that commute here and want their students here? Is there like any general category for the types of people that apply to be in this request?
So I would actually defer to Donna a little bit on this, but I think that our request primarily, we do not have direct advertising, although I believe that folks that live in communities that are seeking school choice are well aware that we offer school choice. They inquire directly. We definitely have staff that utilize school choice that live outside of Beverly to enroll their own students in the Beverly Public Schools. And in terms of communities,
Yeah, I mean, I think that we get a range of people from Gloucester, Salem, and again, siblings and staff members that ask as well.
I was curious if programs were a big draw. I know in prior years, our ROTC program, for instance, was a draw for area students that didn't have that availability in their local high school. Also the music and performing arts. So I wasn't quite sure if, I don't want to answer the question, but I do wonder if there was any one single reason people were choosing, or if there's a whole host of reasons.
I think that Beverly has a great reputation, and I think that folks in the surrounding communities think that, and often it's folks who work in Beverly who are coming to Beverly every day. And so we may see someone from Reading that comes and open enrolls, or tries to school choice in because they work here in Beverly, and their child, they bring them to school and they bring them. So there's a lot of reasons that people do that, I think. I think there's, so that's one factor. My recommendation, I'm going to go back to a different slide if we're done with this one. I have a recommendation that we increase grades 7 and 8 by 5 seats, and that we increase grades 9 through 12 by 5 seats, which would make, I tried to put a motion together in case you were interested, but it can be any configuration that you think of, but I was trying to, for ease of how to put this together, I wanted to kind of do this. But the reason for this is looking at the cohort sizes and looking at what we're doing. I would also offer that Danvers has recently decided to adopt school choice as well. So I think that there'll be folks that are looking for school choice opportunities, and I think it would be important for us to be able to offer and attract as many folks as that we could.
Okay. And I think, Ms. Visnick, you had a second part to your question.
I did, but I will, how about I make this motion and then we'll ask questions underneath the
Okay.
guise of having a motion on the table.
Sure.
I would like to make a motion that the district approve the school choice seats for the 25-26 school year in the following configuration. Grades 1 to 6, 10 seats per. Grades 7 and 8, 15 seats per. Grades 9 to 12, 20 seats per. And for our incoming kindergartners, 15 seats.
And we didn't get to talk about kindergarten yet, but I would share that our numbers right now are below where they typically are for kindergarten. Could just be a smaller year, but the idea, and we have quite a few requests for kindergarten, so it's an opportunity to kind of to think about. So.
Okay, so there's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Silva. And I think Ms. Visnick, did you have a question now that you have the motion?
I
And then
have
I'll
a
call
series
Ms.
of
Cuevo.
questions. And the first one is relative to that kindergarten number. Even though we're always lagging, our data for kindergarten is always lagging because people don't necessarily register when we would like them to. However, we do have a sense, we can get a sense of how many kindergartners we expect if we look at like birth rate data. So do we have any sense, that means you, do you have any sense of what we should, from other data sources, not just registrations, what we should be expecting for a kindergarten total? You call it a cohort, right? A cohort size?
So no, I don't have any on that particularly. I think one of the complicated factors in Beverly is that there are a number of private options for kindergarten that are often taken avail of by, we have a number of private schools. We also have a private kindergarten, two schools in particular that really do cater through kindergarten or through first grade that we then often have students join us after. So I don't have any more specific information, but what I do have for data is tracking where were we on April 1st last year when the cohort size ended up being 369, where were we the year before when the cohort size ended up being 349, and knowing right now how many empty seats we have given the data that we're looking at. And we looked very closely today. I think we currently have 40 empty seats for kindergarten. 40 is a very large number for us to expect to enroll between April 15th and September 1st. We also would continue to monitor that, and I don't think that our school choice would cause us to open a new section. I think a bigger challenge that we have is where students are enrolling and where we have openings and, that sort of thing, so.
May I continue, or would you like me to let other people have a turn? I'll share. Can we come back to me later?
Okay, I just had a question about the kindergarten. So if we're going to open it up and allow 15 seats in kindergarten, but only grades 1 through 4 are going to be 10 seats, those same 15 kids are going to want to move up.
So that would be next year's vote. So in next year, they would be 15, and you could revisit what your first grade numbers are next year.
Or do you think just for that one grade, it would just even out because it's a smaller cohort?
We can't do that. We can't kick them out.
No, that once they're here, they stay. So if you accept 15 this year, then your number next year would be 15 for first grade. It would roll. You would.
Right, but you said that would be your vote.
Well, you vote every year on the number of seats. So that number of seat threshold next year would not be 10 in first grade, it would be 15 because you already have 15.
And my point is we could not drop it because if we accepted 15, we cannot kick them out.
You would need to make that adjustment. Yep, but the cohort size doesn't, it's the same cohort that's moving up, right? Correct.
Okay, Ms. Robinson, then back to Ms. Visnick.
Thank you. So if our budget wasn't as stretched as it is, would you be making this recommendation?
Yeah, actually, I think we had this discussion a little bit last year when we were having the school choice discussion, particularly at the high school level. I think largely when we look grades 9 to 12, And again, I want to remind, I agree that Essex Tech is part of our educational ecosystem, and I'm glad we have it, but we have been having a larger number of students attending Essex Tech, which leaves more seats open at the high school. And so that, if you look at 289 last year, we only had 289 freshmen, and I believe we'll only be in the 280s this year. So I made this, I think we had I don't think we made a formal recommendation, but we had a discussion last year that I believed that there was room for more opportunities for school choice seats. And so, yes, and yes, I also believe it's a good way for us to have revenue, to look at revenues and to have that happen. But I believe that we have capacity in those grade levels, and I think that, it's good for Beverly to be able to do that. It's a win-win both ways.
Okay. Can I go to Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza first? Okay.
And just a question about how we think that will affect class sizes. Like,
So
is there
our-
an advantage to allowing for smaller class sizes, or would it be so small that 40 seats could potentially be hazardous to overall?
So when you look at 5 seats across the number of course offerings at the high school and the scheduling, you could be talking about 1 seat in one course spread out. There's not,
Particularly the kindergarten, because we're talking
Oh, in the
about
kindergarten.
15.
So the kindergarten, our kindergartners are within our class targets that you all set. Where our estimations are to stay within the class targets. That's a conversation and discussion, so that I would say that if we don't take 15 school choice kids, our kindergartner, we would probably have smaller kindergarten sizes, because my intent is not to add a teacher based upon that enrollment, but they would be spread out over the, open seats.
So what are our, I know we have a range. 40 sounds like a lot of seats, but I'm wondering, are we talking about an average class size of 15 to 20 versus 20 to 25? Like, what is that?
I'd say the target is 20 to 21 students in each kindergarten classroom, but the cap would be 22. That's what we look at. But we when I look at putting together class sizes, I look at that 21 range, and some do eke up to 22.
Okay, and we don't think we would exceed that with 15?
I don't think we would exceed that right now with the 15 that we would be bringing in. They would only, so there are only openings in certain schools. So there are some schools that don't have any school choice openings or open enrollment openings. So, based upon how we're looking at it. And we do have, we're watching that, as we always do, to see what we need. But at this point in time, those 40 seats we think would absorb those 15 school choice students without impacting class size.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Silva, and then we'll get back to Ms. Visnick.
I just want to make a comment and maybe even a suggestion. The consideration for grades 9 through 12, adding 5, seems like an easy decision. But incorporating the kindergarten with 5 sets us up to
Be large.
basically force 15 in grades 1 through 8 next year. So I'm thinking maybe in terms of the consideration, making the motion to add grades 9 through 12, increment that up 5, and then think about next year at whether we add 5 to all, to kindergarten and grades 1 through 8.
Ms. Visnick.
I think that in the past, there was one year that we said 0 for kindergarten. We had a really big incoming kindergarten class. And so that year we voted 0. And then as that cohort moved through, we never changed its number and we let it ripple through. And we did everything else around it like we normally do around it. And so I envisioned this would be a similar thing. It looks like we have a low kindergarten. Well, it would be the opposite thing. We have a low projection of kindergarten class size, so we let 15 come in, and as they ripple through, that 1 year is 15, but that doesn't mean we need to change everybody else around it to also be 15, right? We can vote on a singular grade at a time.
Okay.
We don't have to be in buckets.
Okay.
And again, we bring kindergarten just as an example because it happened to be relatively low on the side of it. You could keep it at 10 and then you could revisit it again next year and what actualizes in kindergarten this year, and do we want to do that in first grade next year? Although you see the number of requests we get usually starting kindergarten. So that's why we thought I felt remiss, I would be remiss if I didn't bring it forward that we had 17 requests for kindergarten and, and so, but again, you can keep it at 10. And then next year, if it falls through that it really is and does remain to be a low class, you can open up first grade seats to, you can do that. You have the flexibility. I think we sometimes think we had to maintain this. We could pick any number for any grade level any year. You have the flexibility to be able to decide what that number is. So, if you're weary about 15 in kindergarten, but I would strongly recommend that we definitely look 9 to 12, and I would add that we look 7 and 8, as we know that that's also in a place where we can bring students in.
Okay, we're going to go quickly, Ms. Visnick, and then Mayor Cahill.
Oh, I'll let him go. I already had a turn.
Okay, Mayor Cahill.
Thank you all. Dr. Trochik, you mentioned that the default is $5,000 per student that's incoming, but there can be an adjustment up if that student requires services. Can you give a couple of higher end examples of just how expensive a set of services has been with a couple of our choice kids, and how much has eventually come through the formula to help with that?
The claiming comes so it's a claiming system, and what you do is you go in and you identify that you have a student in their school choice and they stay here, and for example, a student that's on school choice ends up receiving some special education services at some point in their career. I think that data is accounted for, particularly if it involves any paraprofessional support or any program placements. Am I correct about that? I'm asking Bethany mostly because it would really only involve students on IEPs or special education.
Yeah, so every year we complete an incremental billing process for students that are school choice who receive special education services. And so there's certain costs associated with different services that are set costs. It's not actual costs, but it's like set amount that we're able to bill for those services. And so then that amount gets added on to the base amount that we are receiving for each student.
If I could follow up, my gut says that if in a second year and a third year, they're rolled into the reimbursements we might get. Well, no.
No, it's school choice money all along. It's a billing process all along.
They don't become part of our Chapter 70 formula.
No.
At any point.
And that
Okay.
is why you've heard me reference that sometimes you can go on the DESE website and look at what an enrollment number is, and it may vary. You might look at one spreadsheet and they say, oh, you have this many students,
Right.
and another spreadsheet, because school choice doesn't always live in the same piece of data around student enrollment. So it's a separate funding source than Chapter 70.
So if a school choice kid comes in and we determine at some point that they need special ed services, and we're getting $5,000 for them, and they say they're able to be kept in district, but their share of a cost of their program maybe is, I don't know, I don't want to say a number that's out of
So we don't
25 or 30.
Right. So we don't determine that number, the state does. There's a set menu. They will say they're receiving speech services or they're receiving, counseling services, and that number, it's an incremental increase to how it's billed.
So what's the most we've gotten for any one choice student higher than 5,000 in a given year through that formula?
I don't have that number. I can get that for you outside of this, but I wouldn't even want to hypothesize. I don't have that number.
Okay, thanks.
Now, Ms. Visnick.
Awesome. So can you speak to somewhere in the past, we had a spike. I think I remember that spike of cohort size breaking the 400 threshold. And so from a relativity point of view, when we look at these numbers, I think somebody might look at this particular sheet and think, oh goodness, next year's 8th grade is projected to be 360, and that's a hugely different number than 289, which is our projection for 10th grade next year, right? However, I'm old enough to remember when we had several, I think, several 400s. True or false?
We did. We had the year we opened the middle school, so 2018. I think we had 405 was our rising 5th grade class. And so it just happened to be, it's probably your daughter's class. And so that, yes, it was. That class now sits much lower. Again, that, it changes over time. Our I would look to 5th and 6th grade right now. Those were years where we were sometimes up around the 380, 390 number. Those 370 and 371s are indicative of pretty large cohorts.
Okay, so then my next question is, relatively speaking, again, the 360 on that page looks high, and I wonder if our I talked to Donna before the meeting. I was hoping to see the sheet, the sheet that I like, my one pager, because I think that it might be easier to make this decision if we were actually looking at this year's sheet that shows at every school for each grade how many are, what are our actual class sizes.
The sheet doesn't do that for you in grade 7 and 8.
But we know how many teams are there, and then we basically do the math.
And some of but that 360 would be inclusive of some students that are in sub-separate programs as well. So, if your question is what is the impact for 8th grade, I think we can certainly have a conversation about that. What would only 5 extra students. We already have 10. So right. It's not even going to be an increase of numbers because there are already 10 school choice students in that 360
that I
number.
Can't kick out, yes.
And they're already in that 360 number. So that number includes them.
Okay.
So, they're in there already. So you're talking, and we have 3 requests right now. So that it's not as much a variable. It feels like a big variable, but it's not that much a variable because we're pretty full already.
Thank you for explaining that. I think that when there's a narrative that our schools are quote unquote overcrowded. And so when we're looking at doing a vote like this, I think it's important for us to try to say as much as we can so people can, watch the video or, watch it later on or whatever. Because otherwise it looks bad for that narrative to say, oh yeah, and we increased the numbers, when the reality is, okay, our class sizes are still all within our own voted upon ranges. And so having the conversation, I think, is incredibly important. And I think it's, I understand also what the mayor was trying to ask, right? And there's a risk there when we take children, we don't get to say, yeah, we want that one and we don't want that one. So there is a risk with having school choice, but at some point in time in the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years, we talked about this at FNF, we used to send way more children out than we brought in, and it cost our district money. And we have definitely tipped, and now we have more coming in than going out, and that is a good thing, right, for several reasons. But, again, the average person doesn't know that. Yeah. And so I think it's important that we talk about that so that if somebody is kind of new to the district, they understand the difference.
I think it would be also helpful to keep in perspective that in a week's time, we can have this much fluctuation just by students who move in and out of Beverly, right? Like that we 3 students in grade 8, there's going to be 15 students who leave and maybe as many who move in, and we don't have a tumultuous turnover, but we do have in and out and transients of families coming and going all the time. And so these numbers are, and especially Emma likes to use the economy of scale at the middle school and high school versus at an elementary school. You're spreading them out over 15 sections. So,
Can you put the motion slide back up, please?
Yes. But I guess I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with kindergarten, because the kindergarten was just me bringing that forward to you. I'm not trying to, I could go either way on the 10 or 15, but I just want to make sure that we are aware that kindergarten is a year where we get a lot of requests, and it is a year where we could invite a lot of folks to join us.
Ms. Robinson, I saw your hand.
Thank you. So just some concerns I think we should keep in mind. Ever since I've been on the school committee before, even I've heard families advocating for small class sizes. I've heard our educators want small class sizes. There are concerns about the number of students on IEPs in any given class. We don't cap class sizes, especially at the secondary level. We don't know whether or not there's going to be any new building that will bring in more students. So as much as, it's hard to say yes with all those variables in place, but I mean, even though the revenue would be fantastic and nice, it's just hard to reconcile those things. So I just wanted to bring up just a few things I just thought of in the past few minutes.
Thank you. Ms. Visnick.
I will say that I want to emphasize what Dr. Trochik just said about the differential, because most of the numbers that are on that motion are already in this system and they're already accounted for. And so the totality of the additions would be 5 times 4, 5 times 6, actually 30 additional children across 6 grades. And then the kindergartners, right? So we talk a lot about this in F&F and about the spread out kind of thing. So if we look at each of our 5 elementary schools has at least 3 kindergarten sessions. How is this one called? It's not a session. Section. And so that's at least 15 sections. And so you say, all right, if we take in 15 children, then that's 1 more child per class. And so if we think about it like that, and some schools have more than 3 sections, they all have at least 3, then it's not nearly as daunting of a number. And that's part of the reason why I was asking for the sheet, because when we look at that and we look at this, if we looked at it this year and we see a lot of numbers in the teens, a lot of our elementary class sizes are low 20s, high teens. And so if you say, okay, I'm going to go from 18 to 19, would we really be opposed to that in exchange for however much more income? So maybe we want to, I know you brought it early, but maybe we want to wait and look at the sheet. If that would make some people happier, I would be willing to withdraw my motion.
Call on yourself.
I'm going to call on myself. I think there are a lot of positive reasons why people would put themselves in the lottery, and to have 17 kindergarten potential students already signed up this early is indicative to me that people are looking to move to our community. They're looking to choose our schools. And I think that we're all the richer for it. There are so many reasons why we have transient students, whether they're looking to secure housing here in Beverly, whether they're downsizing or moving out of our community but want to just graduate with a Beverly diploma with all their cohort. I feel comfortable and ready to vote tonight to the motion that you've already made, because I do see that there is that bubble, and I would like us to preserve our classes. I think when we have 40 seats vacant at this point in a kindergarten cohort, we can imagine how that ripple effect will go through. And just like that year that we decided not to accept any because we had so many registrations for kindergarten, I think if we can have sort of the mechanism each year to sort of stabilize our class sizes so that we have the right number of sections in each grade, it's, I don't know, kind of a win-win. So we're not constantly flip-flopping teachers from one grade level to the next grade level, and they're following the bubble. And if, I'm just looking at it from that perspective, as well as from the perspective of, if people want to be in Beverly and we have the capacity, like, I would love to welcome them into our Beverly schools. There's so many other pieces of the puzzle that are causing students to move in and out. If we have this one mechanism by which people can choose to come into our schools and have some stability for those students, I think we should offer it. So.
You can also take it in two motions. You could do the 7-8, and then you could do the 9-12, and then you could do kindergarten, just as a suggestion, if you wanted to think of it that way.
Okay. Mayor Cahill?
Thanks, Madam President. When is the deadline for families to apply? May 1st. And typically, if there are more than available seats, a lottery is held after that, May 1st.
We
soon
hold,
after.
We hold the lottery probably, usually it's mid-May, I think, and we make notification by June 1st, just to make sure that folks know before the end of the school year.
Okay, thanks.
So just remind everyone, we do have a motion on the table, as outlined by this slide, to have choice seats for the 25-26 school year. Thank you for making it bigger. Keeping grades 1 through 6 at the 10 seats that we've done in prior years, and increasing 7 and 8 to 15 seats, increasing 9 to 12 from 15 to 20, and then increasing kindergarten by 5 seats from 10 to 15. Mayor Cahill.
Madam President, I am very conflicted as I sit here. I generally want to always be arms wide open, and I'm thinking about how hard it has been and is being to try to get us to get to and through a budget for this coming year. And if I'm reading this right, the proposal is for 35 additional choice students, which would be $175,000, which sounds good, but could disappear fast if 2 or 3 of those kids ultimately end up needing significant services beyond the rest of the kids. And there's also the concern that if somebody brings significant challenges with them behaviorally, there's that. I mean, it's never felt this way before in my own head, as every year we approve the number we're at. The thought of intentionally increasing the program where the program has been at a certain level for our times here, it's just got me feeling both ways about it, I guess.
Dr. Silva, and then Ms. Visnick.
I guess I would ask, are there examples in the past where you anticipated a certain amount of revenue and then looking back retrospectively?
That's a great question. So actually, we've spent a lot of time talking about it. We would not anticipate 100% fill rate of these seats. We probably fill our open seats at about 70%. So the increase would be 70% of that 175,000. 122. Thank you, Emma. She's good.
But are there years where, you anticipate a certain amount of money coming in, and that, a particular year or several particular years where the expenses for those children?
We don't track expenses first. So once we invite and accept a school choice student into the Beverly Public Schools, they are a Beverly Public School student.
But
we don't
isn't
track
it worth
them
tracking to find out if you're getting disproportionately?
Well, I don't believe
too
so,
many?
because I find that less than inclusive. So
No, but it's not to say it's inclusive or exclusive. It's just to analyze how what that policy is leading to.
So if you were going to do a comprehensive review of whether you chose to do school choice or not, so we do blind admissions. We cannot decide who we take and who we don't take. So you're going to take that risk with any time you open seats up in any configuration. It's a lottery. We don't.
But I'm not suggesting that it not be blind. It should still remain blind, but retrospectively look at.
We could do
if
that.
there's
I don't have that.
disproportionate-
I don't have that data. I don't believe, Bethany, you have that data disaggregated in that way. No,
So
we'd
Ms.
have to do.
Visnick
We'd
had her
have to
hand up,
do
then Mayor
that.
Cahill.
It's on this.
Go ahead.
If we're not tracking the additional costs of any of the choice kids, we can't apply for higher reimbursements from the state through
No,
the
we
program.
apply for the higher reimbursement, but we don't. We would have to then break down was that child in a group of 4 or a group of 3 when they were getting their special education services or their speech therapy? We only say they receive speech therapy services and it's an incremental increase. We don't pull it apart. Emma, go ahead.
I just wanted to contribute that the reimbursement rates that we are allowed to bill incrementally, similar to circuit breaker, are at rates set by the state. So it is, the state assigns a cost to, call it an hour worth of psychological services written into a student's IEP. And so the state assigns that cost. So it's reimbursed similar to the circuit breaker mechanism. So we then don't separately go and say, okay, well, the psychologist that I met with happened to be placed here on our grid, our salary grid, and therefore an hour of their time would be equivalent to X number of dollars.
Or how many children they would be in a group with at the same time.
Correct.
Or how those, that would be, we don't assign cost to individual children when we're educating them. That would be what we would have to do. We would have to pull all of the school choice students and we would have to then identify, and it's a much bigger ask than just simply, a spreadsheet that we would maintain on that.
Ms. Visnick?
I think that what I wish to contribute to this particular sidebar is that we have no control over who moves in or out of our district. And when someone moves here and they enroll in our schools, we're mandated to educate them. And that education could cost a lot of money. And I don't see school choice being any different. Either we have room in our buildings, in our structures to take some number of children and we take them and we try to educate them the best we can, or we don't. I don't think that we should be making this decision on a pure monetary basis. And Ms. Robinson, you asked, would we be bringing this recommendation forward if it weren't a tight budget year? And the superintendent said, no, this isn't necessarily about money. It happens to be that we're in a better monetary space now because, in fact, our school system is that much better than it used to be, and people are staying and or choicing in instead of flocking out. And so there was a point in time when a lot more students left than stayed or came in, because we also have to pay when our students go out. So we don't see that because of the way the bookkeeping works, but there is a bill that gets paid and then it gets attributed to the schools, but it's on the books on the city side, so we don't see it when we look at our finances up front. But I don't think that we should be making this decision based on, there's a risk that maybe one or more of the 35 additional children that we're about to vote on might need services, and therefore it'll cost us more than the $5,000 that we're going to get reimbursed from the state. I just don't, that doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like the right thing to do, and I don't think that that's how we should be making our decisions.
So the chair will remind the committee we have a motion on the table to approve choice seats for the 25-26 school year in the following configuration.
And again, you can amend them and take them individually or however you want.
Are we ready to move the question?
I am ready. I'm also happy to accept a friendly amendment if somebody wants to break them up.
Dr. McKenzie.
Yeah, I still feel like I'm inclined to prefer to remain at the 10 in kindergarten, only because of the feedback from our educators about children that we currently have having increased needs, and not necessarily so much about the cost, but the impact to the environment and to the use of our current services. And I'm also wondering whether that specific class, that grade level, could be revisited at any other point with a wait list rather than agreeing to 10. and going to 15? Could we say 10 and then have a wait list of the 5 seats? Is that even a technically possible thing?
Meaning, could we vote to increase it later?
Could we vote to say 10 with a wait list of 5 should we find that we're still at 40 empty seats after registration is anticipated?
So if you just look at the second part of this slide, school committees may specify the schools and grades in which seats are available for non-resident students when determining capacity for admission by June 1st for the upcoming school year. So you have June 1st is when you need to determine it by, and then that stands for that current year, and then the next year by June 1st you could readjust it for the following year. So it's an annual vote of the school committee to determine the number of seats and grades. So that's just that's guided by Mass General Law.
Okay.
If I think that answers your question. We couldn't do it in January.
Right. I just, the chances that it stays at 40 seats, who knows?
Right. So,
but if that goes up and then,
Yeah.
I don't think it's always necessary to go all the way to the cap of the classroom size with really
Fine.
young kids. I feel like if you've got one less child, that's not terrible.
Are you-
So I'm just wondering, could we essentially make a motion with the amendment to stay at the current size with the flexibility to have a wait list of the 5 should that 40 gap remain that way? Is
If we
that
do-
possible? By June 1st is what we would have to do?
I don't think
or
so. I
no?
think we have to,
Okay.
if we say 15, it's 15. If we say 10, it's 10. We will maintain a wait list for beyond 10, but that will only be if people decline. So we pull 10 names, we offer 10 seats. We send those out June 1, and then if in July we have 2 decline, we would go to the next 2 people on the wait list. And that's how it works right now. And we would do that up until the start of school. And so, yes, but the number of seats is finite once you decide it on June 1st. It's not fluctuating.
Saw Ms. Biznick's hand.
But I think we could vote this evening. We could take an amendment to this motion that's on the screen right now to drop kindergarten down to 10.
Yep.
And it's only April, I don't even know what day it is, okay?
Ninth.
It's April something.
Yep.
And then in mid-May, we could vote again to, if our number is still that we have 40-ish or 30 open seats, we as a body could put it on our agenda again and vote to put it back up to 15.
As long as you do it by
As
June
long as
1st.
it's before June 1st.
So is there a motion to amend the main motion to reduce the kindergarten back to 10?
Yeah, so I'd like to make that motion to reduce the kindergarten back to 10 with an intention to revisit it before June 1st.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I would second that motion for discussion.
Okay, we are now looking at the amendment of the main motion to reduce to 10 in the main motion with the intention of revisiting before the June 1st deadline. Any discussion? So we'll be voting on the,
I would ask Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza to change the language to instead of revisit before June 1st, because if we tag it to a meeting, then it'll be on the agenda for that meeting, perhaps, as opposed to worrying about scheduling a special meeting because we didn't do something,
May
but it's still
28th.
before June 1st. What about looking at the second May meeting?
It is May 28th.
May 28th.
Oh, it's very late. Is that
That's okay.
Is that okay?
That's okay.
Before June 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to say
Doesn't
with the
matter.
intention of
We'll put it on the agenda.
Leave the whole.
revisiting the number at the
Committee-
May 28th meeting?
Specifically in the May 28th
Yeah.
meeting. Okay.
Committee of the whole.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So it would be to amend it to lower kindergarten seats to remain at 10 seats with the intention of revisiting that number at our next committee of the whole meeting, May 28th. Is that right?
Well, it's our second, yeah, because we have an April committee of the whole, so May 28th committee of the
At
whole
our May
meeting.
28th
Okay,
committee.
and Ms. Biznick, you still second that
Yes.
amended motion?
Sure.
Is there any other discussion on the amendment of the main motion? Is the amendment clear? Reduce from 15 back to 10, which is our current kindergarten with the intention of revisiting by May 28. All those in favor of amending the main motion? Looks like 5. And those opposed? 2. The motion carries. So now our main motion is amended to 10 seats at the kindergarten, and all the others stand. Is there any more discussion on the main motion? Are we ready to vote? Oh,
I just wanted to say, for all the reasons that I brought up, I think the numbers, I think the numbers are just too high. I hear a lot of people say that our middle school, there's too many students, there's too many, like, the classes are too big. And while I understand what you're saying about, it spreads out, I feel like we're already what I hear, busting at the seams. So it's hard for me to even add any more students.
Madam President?
yes, Mayor Cahill.
I appreciate the sentiment. I just want to point out that the school was built for 1,400 students. That number is actually a number that's calculated to be 80% of the students that a school can actually accommodate. So this all goes by the MSBA, Mass School Building Formula. So it was built square footage based on 1,400 students, but it can handle 1,640 students. The big difference is that if you were to have an enrollment that high, then all classrooms are used all the time. So teachers wouldn't have a dedicated classroom, right? So if it's your prep period, someone else is in your classroom always, right? So that's the differentiator with that 80% build size and the ability to take more students. What I'm seeing, just what I'm seeing when I add up these 4 projected enrollments for grades 5 through 8 is 1,443 kids. So it's not overcrowded. The class sizes are the class sizes that the school was built to accommodate. And to go back to a previous school committee, and I don't remember the year, none of us were on the school committee yet, set the class sizes as school committee policy, and they were, I believe Dr. Trochik might be able to help me, but kindergarten through 2 were in that 20 to 22 range. Grades 2 to 5 was still in the elementary, were 22 to 25, and grades 6 through 12 were 25 to 30. So with a goal that, maximum class sizes would be that upper end. So I think this school committee some years back had some discussion and debate, but never really didn't take any action to change those numbers that had been set by a prior school committee. So they've kind of sat there for a long time. But I'll say it again, this school was built, and the number of classrooms and the size of the class, it was all built to accommodate 25 kids per classroom. And that was always the target. That was what MSBA at the state level allowed for. So I just want to say that when people talk about class sizes.
Okay, Ms. Robinson, then I'm going to call myself.
While I appreciate what the school was built for, we're not addressing in this conversation the needs of students that have changed dramatically over the past few years. And I don't think anybody would ever say a smaller class size isn't more desirable for student learning, for student achievement. It's always a win-win when you have a smaller class sizes.
Madam President, if I could, I want to say that this school committee, this school administration have done an incredible job of addressing the changing needs of students that have come with everything that's come since March of 2020. And I think Dr. Trochik and her team did an incredibly admirable job in how they utilized various sources of funding, particularly ESSER funding, and, a good amount of which was targeted for, really kind of bringing along kids with all that they, with all the challenges, with the gaps, with the deficits that came with that, shutdown, and then the learning that happened in the next school year. So I understand what you're saying, I do. I don't disagree really in kind of principle, I think, but I think we're all doing the very best that is possible. And I think a lot of great work has been done, continues to be done, and will be done in this district by all of us.
I wanted to just offer that this is now only 30 students out of 4650. So it's a very small percentage. And I think having the mechanism by which people can choice in is an important way for students to come to Beverly in the right ways. Choice provides that flexibility for parents who are selling or buying into the community, transferred for work. We also have a number of students that come to Beverly by doubling up on, how other housing situations. I think we can all recognize that housing insecurity is a real problem in our area. This is one of the most expensive places to live in the United States. I think that this is just, we've kind of talked about this more than I think we've talked about other things that are really important in our district. But I think this 30 students over a 4650 is a very small proportion of our student body. It's not going to overcrowd any one classroom, especially with the choice of placement to help level out our class sizes in some of our elementary schools. I was going to move the question, but now I see a hand next to me. But I would just say, I think that there are a lot of thoughtful things that have been said here tonight. And I think that, we have a role in setting policy and setting best practices. But I don't think 30 students, giving them the option to come to Beverly schools in a legitimate and authorized process way is going to make or break us. So, Dr. McKenzie Franza.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just, I guess I just want to emphasize that for me, to your point, the spread worries me less when it's across grades. And I think for kindergarten, I have more concern because it is that one grade level versus looking from 9 to 12, 20 seats, spread out. And looking at the demand, I don't think that it's going to look dramatically different. But I am concerned about that concentration, I suppose, in that earlier time. So I don't know if that helps at all, but I think if we're looking at the number of seats, it's over the entire 4-year period.
Ms. Visnick.
I really want to try to move the question, and I want to pile on to something that the mayor said. So I'm personally tormented. When my oldest son went through the school system, the class sizes were much higher. And I don't think that people, again, they don't remember that. If you're not old and paying attention, then you don't know that the class sizes used to be much higher. And as you point out, probably right before we got on is when the numbers were brought down. And again, it's a recommendation. It's not a hard and fast rule. The other thing is that in that time when the class sizes were bigger, we were much closer to 4,800 students than 4,600 students. So I have talked with our wonderful administrators over there about trying to dig back through some of that data and bring it forward to counteract this narrative that our class sizes are too big, because the fact of the matter is they're smaller now than they used to be. And yes, the needs of our children have changed, but we saw last week in some data that Dr. Trocheck brought forward that we have more counselors in our schools now than ever. We have the program formerly known as Prince and City Connects, formerly known as City Connects, Beverly Connects, right? We have a lot more things in place now, and we're spending much more money. And so the combination of those things make me very comfortable asking you if we can move the motion.
Okay, the question has officially been moved. Yes, so we will now vote. It's the main motion, but instead of 15, it's 10, with the intention to revisit at our May 28th Committee of the Whole meeting, the kindergarten number. Everyone's clear on the motion? Those who would like to pass this motion? 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and those opposed? 2. The motion has passed. We will see the kindergarten number again on May 28th, Committee of the Whole. Donna, you'll have to remind me to make sure to get it on the agenda.
Good editing on the screen.
How'd I do? I changed it to a 10. And then I was nervous because I didn't know how to get out of it. I'm sitting here panicking because I didn't know how to get out of it. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. All right. Thank you. Let's see. All right. So thank you for that. I'm going to move on to the budget process update, budget update. Oh, except for that 10 is still there, and it's going to be there with us for the rest of the night.
Turn back on your annotations on Zoom.
In a race?
There's a track. Yeah, there you go.
God, I'm getting good at this. Okay. Thank you. We are learning in real time. All right, so thank you very much. I wanted to kind of bring our attention to the budget update that we have. So kind of as we begin our budget discussion tonight, I want to start by recognizing the incredible work that is happening every day in our schools. I think if you are fortunate enough to have been here for our CISL presentation, you can see the forward movement that we've made in the last few years. And tonight we're bringing forward some costs that are associated. Last meeting we talked about the increased costs that you would see. In this meeting we're going to associate some costs with the anticipated adjustments that we plan on making. We're really proud of the work that we've done on this, and we remain focused on delivering a high-quality education and meaningful opportunities for all our students. I do want to say, and I want to echo what I've heard a couple times tonight, our staff are one of our greatest resources, and we want to make sure that this budget, that you understand that this budget is built with an eye. We know that we had some increased costs. We know that some of the opportunities that we had in terms of our salary changes that we've made is going to help us move forward as we retain and attract really great educators in our district. So this budget reflects that commitment in some of those costs. When we enter this budget season, we do so always with an eye to our goals and to our priorities and to make sure that we're kind of keeping those in line. Our aim has been to make sure that while we do that, we kind of keep our eye on our key and main, and my doesn't want to forward, our priorities, and keeping in line with the initiatives that we've worked on so hard, including things like the implementation of really high quality curriculum, looking at a number of the things that we do. And so just want to put a nod to that. This year, we're taking a more intentional approach by using a FY26 to the FY26 budget by using a zero-based budgeting lens. We've talked about this slide. This slide has been in our last few presentations. That means that we've asked every principal and every program director to actively participate in the process from the ground up. Rather than rely on previous year allocations, we're looking closely at enrollment trends. We're looking at student needs. We're looking at specific program and building requirements. And our staffing levels for next year have been carefully developed based upon anticipated enrollment and the evolving program needs that we have in our district. We know this is a difficult budget year. This is a slide. This is not a new slide again. I've used this over and over. We know that districts across Massachusetts are facing significant challenges. And the reality is that we here also have to make sure that we're making strategic decisions about the things that we do. We want to minimize the impact on our classrooms, but we still have these key budget pressures that we're working with. So I'm not going to read this whole slide again. I've presented it to you a couple times, but we are dealing with inflation impact. We acknowledge the increased wages and benefits. We know about rising special education costs, and we know that expenses are growing faster than revenues. So as we've been navigating this, and we are continuing to do that work. Rather than go through each one of those again, this is a summary of the anticipated increases. This is the stuff that I've been presenting to all of you over the past 6 weeks, and we've gone into far more detail with that. If you have questions about this, if you want more information about any of these, they're all available on our website where you can find further and deeper information. But tonight we said that we would go through and take a look at some of the approaches that we were taking to kind of make adjustments to the budget and associating some costs with some of those. So again, the sort of strategies that we're using is looking at enrollment adjustments. That's something that we do every year. Resourcing of staff at the building and district level. Attrition management, leveraging any natural staff turnover as we realign our positions. aligning program staffing to meet Beverly needs, looking at some programs and making sure they match what we have in place, and district-wide resourcing review. So a little more detail on each one of those. We talked about anticipated budget adjustments based on staffing changes on enrollments. So we identified some adjustments that we can make that would, so again, that long list of increases, we're trying to kind of correct for some of those. Based upon the enrollment adjustments that we're making, $1,137,554. Those include taking a look at freshman academy enrollment, and we talked about that last week, the number of courses that we are going to be required to provide for a smaller cohort that's rising into the high school. Looking at elective enrollment, Mark and his team have done a great job looking at, we want to maintain our robust program of studies, but looking at how can we do that to make sure we're having strong enrollment in each one of those courses. The middle school enrollment changes actually are making sure that we're accounting for the 5th and 6th grade, the rising 5th grade class that's coming in, making sure that we have resources available for all the students that are in the building. Always, as we do every year, looking at elementary classrooms based on class size targets. Again, those class size targets, K to 2 are 22, and 3 and 4 is 25. An example is looking at where we have enrollment numbers and where we might have opportunities where we would either have to add classes or reduce classes. And so I put a couple of examples. We're watching the Cove Kindergarten enrollment numbers, which are much lower than they have been in past years. We're looking at Centerville's rising 3rd grade because it's teetering around 23, and so do we want to take a look at what we'll do. So those are the way we keep our eye on those things. We're also looking at our elementary learning center supports at our elementary level. We're looking at what caseloads look like, looking at schedules look like, what the IEPs entail, and what services are required and what staffing we need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students there. Non-student facing roles and attrition. We anticipate making budget adjustments for the reduction in non-student facing roles, realigning responsibilities following attrition. There's an example of attrition sitting right here. There are changes that will be made based upon retirements that happen throughout the district in varying places and in varying roles. One of the areas that we've been working really hard, and actually you had the pleasure, if you were at CISL, I keep bringing that up, of seeing our amazing instructional coaches and instructional directors that we have. Our instructional coaches have been sort of over the past year evolving and looking at not only their commitment to high quality professional development and the work that they do around making sure that our data is front and helpful for our teachers, but also providing direct student intervention, being able to shift to some student interventions and having our coaches do that shifts the need for other in-class supports that are happening at the elementary level. Meeting expanding needs by repurposing vacant positions. Another example of attrition, we had Bob Chiroli, who resigned, and John Coffey, who stepped up and is in our role as interim buildings and grounds director. But also, we know that we have been using a lot of funding for contractual services for HVAC needs. And so do we look at what that assistant facilities director, as we look to refill that, what does that look like? Or is there a way to capitalize on some HVAC needs that we have in terms of how we replace that position? Also looking at an unfilled position that we have right now. We have a couple of unfilled positions within special ed and repurposing them and from one role to another. And one area that we have identified that we need more support is within our AIM programs and providing some coaching for we have very complex needs in some of the programs that we have in our AIM program. And so finding that specialized coaching support for our teachers who have, we have 9 sections of AIM that serve our autism population. So looking at some coaching services. Realigning responsibilities. So central office with 2 retirements in the central office cabinet. And it's an opportunity to restructure some of the responsibilities and take a look at what that would look like. As well as Director of Instructional Technology, who was Judy Miller, who retired earlier this year. So we have some opportunity to relook at aligning responsibilities and what that would look like as we go forward. Program alignment to meet Beverly needs. This is taking a look, I spoke about this a little bit in our last meeting. An example of taking a look at program alignment for Beverly is the City Connects program, which when we originally entered into it, we, for the first 2 years, were partnering with Boston College. Boston College had a very specific formula for approaching how that work looked. This year has been a year of assessing either overlaps. So that particular program was built standardized for any district, but without taking into consideration what supports might already exist within a district. So this has been a year of revisiting and taking a look at not reducing any of the things that they do, but are there overlaps in responsibility, and do we have to align those services based on building needs? So does one building require a different level of resourcing than another building across the district? So those are things that we're working at. We'll have more information on. And then preschool staffing. We're taking a holistic look of staffing needs at our preschool. We've heard from our preschool teachers that the need for some out-of-classroom supports for students. And so how can we do that? What would that look like? And how does that mirror how do we utilize in-class supports at the same time, as well as our preschool is a rolling admission. So when we open the doors in September, we might have 90 students. When we, by the end of the year, we might have 120. And so making sure that we have the resources available, but that we are looking at staffing as it rolls throughout the year. So those are just a couple of examples of that. And a reminder, we know that we had ESSER funding. We know that we tried really hard to say when ESSER was done, everything was done, but we know that we had a couple of positions that hung around for a little while, and making sure that we're making adjustments for previously grant-funded positions and making sure they're either in the budget or not in the budget based upon our need. And then finally, other opportunities for savings, anticipated budget adjustments for other opportunities. One of the things we're talking about is uncoupling the one-to-one devices, primarily in K and 1. We know that we needed that one-to-one look for the pandemic when students were taking devices home, but we also know that we don't really need all of our kindergartners and first graders sitting in front of an iPad all day in school. The teachers in kindergarten this year actually were the first to kind of look at that, and we've gotten positive feedbacks from them about that, as well as looking at first grade now. And what do we need? Is it a station rotation where they're accessing the devices versus a one-to-one? Looking at IT, the software cost savings, where can we find areas that we have redundancies in some of our programs that we have and some of our licenses? Shifting our food service equipment repair costs to the school lunch fund, and then the reduction of fellows, and that wasn't because it wasn't working, but the availability of fellows wasn't exactly there this year. So that's something that we're looking at that will provide us an opportunity for savings. So I felt like we wanted to kind of line these up for you and give you a general idea of where we are. Our wages and benefits, these are the anticipated increases that we had, including the carry forward offsets that we've spoken about in several of our meetings up to date. So these total if anyone has been doing the math, this is not a new number. This number was the number that if you were adding them up throughout the last 6 weeks, you would have seen that we were, that at the first run, we had 9,774,559 increases, which is about a 12.4% increase. However, then we took a look at our anticipated budget adjustments, and these are the budget adjustments that we think that we have identified: the staffing changes, the reduction in non-student facing, program alignment, previously grant-funded positions, and other opportunities for savings. So we identified at $2,884,559 through that process. So we are at this point in the process, we have come up with our number of $6,890,000, which is 8.8% increase in the overall budget. We have a city contribution. These are the last year's numbers. If you look at FY25, the city contribution was $63 million. Our Chapter 70 was $15 million. The final appropriation was $78,267,064. Our requested city contribution this year is $69,698,199. Right now, at the governor's proposed budget for Chapter 70, we're at $15,341,720. We're still looking to identify additional revenues of $117,225, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. So we have come up with we know that we're at $6,890,000. We have worked really hard. The city leaders have worked really hard, and before we look at Chapter 70 funding, we've worked with the city and the city leaders, and we've come to our request to them was $6,440,000, and that is an amount that the city's been able to commit to us for this budget process. We know now that right now, with no increases to Chapter 70, we're at $332,775. We all anticipate that number will likely increase with the House and the Senate budgets when they're released. And if not, we're comfortable that we will find other revenues, I think, to make that difference up, whether it be looking at the school choice numbers that we just talked about, whether it's a conversation around preschool tuitions, whether it comes in the form of other adjustments that we would make to the budget, which we are still in the process of meeting with folks. So our draft budget proposal at this point, as it stands right now, would include a $6,440,000 increase from the city, which is an 8.8% increase. Is that right, Emma? Which I need to acknowledge is a huge increase. And Mayor, I would love to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about that, but the city has worked so hard with us in order to try to identify how we can fund this. It's been part of a 2 or 3 year discussion, Mayor, would you say, as we worked together? We spent the last 2 years looking at 2 to 3 year budgeting discussions as we talked about them. And so we're feeling really confident and comfortable that we're at with that 117, we will be right where we need to be. And I want to also mention that some of the reason that money is a little bit off is that the health insurance came in a little late, and the mayor's office and the city leaders were able to kind of come through and cover the increase in health insurance as well. So that is a really strong number. We know we're fortunate. We know that last year we had a historic increase from the city. And again, this year, another historic increase. And I think it really shows the commitment that the city of Beverly has to their schools, to our students, to our families. And so I will entertain, just to kind of finish our legislative process, the governor's proposed budget right now has Chapter 70 at $15,341,720. That is a $75 increase at minimum aid as a minimum aid district. I think we really need to look to advocacy to the state level. Our funding, I feel like it's challenging to continue to try to put all of the increase in weight on the municipality, the city, the state. We really need to be advocating the state to kind of come through. I do anticipate a slight increase. Mayor, I'm not sure what you're hearing on your end, but I think we'll see some increases in the House Ways and Means in the Senate budget. So I'm hoping that final Chapter 70 number will come up and we'll be where we need to be. But that's where we are in the process. We have not heard yet from the House Ways and Means. We have, however, heard some news on the supplemental budget, so I'm going to turn it over to Emma because she's going to talk a little bit about some news that has come out on the sup budget, and then I'll entertain any questions.
So very, very recently, so late on Monday, the House Ways and Means proposed a supplemental budget. So while we haven't heard their budget for FY26, we did hear a little bit from the first reading on the supplemental budget. It was scheduled for its second reading today. Some key highlights is that it sort of allocated $58 million for circuit breaker for this year, which was really a response to the advocacy around the fact that the 75% transportation threshold for circuit breaker transportation had not been met, and it had only been funded at 44%. What that meant for us as the Beverly Public Schools was actually a reduction of almost $330,000 in what our circuit breaker reimbursement claim could have been. So not a small amount of money for us here alone. And that was felt by districts across the Commonwealth. There's been a lot of advocacy. Additionally, $190 million for FY26. Their supplemental budget also included a strong focus on school transportation costs, setting aside funds specifically for audit and review of, as we've experienced in our own budget here and is across the Commonwealth, the increasing costs of transportation, especially for our contracted transportation, and calling for investments in collaborative procurement when possible. And so that is something that is currently being championed for us regionally by the consortium. They are putting together, and hopefully we will see some of those outcomes in the near future. But so while we don't have news yet on, the House Ways and Means for our Chapter 70 money, this is hopefully trending for some good news for us.
Just before I close, I have just a couple of, I just sort of want to reiterate that where we are right now in the budget process and with the work that we've done up to date, this budget maintains sort of our commitment to a number of things: our innovative pathway programs, our after dark programming, our robust and diverse program of studies that we have at the high school, and the investments that we've made in social emotional supports. So we believe this continues our commitment to all of those things. In this budget, our class sizes remain within our targets. There's not any class sizes that exceed our targets, and as we've proposed it right now. And our caseloads for our special education teachers and our multilingual learners will be comparable to the other districts and others with similar demographics to us. So, we feel like we've put together, with the help of the building leaders and the department heads, a budget that represents and meets the needs of our student, and also works to try to maintain what we need and maintain our commitment to our educators with the wages and benefits that we know that we've agreed to and all of the other things. So this just is my final graph. If you look here, I just want to be clear about where funding comes from and where we get our funding in Beverly. The blue section down the bottom is our state aid. This is the money that funds our schools from the state. The orange and the green portions are our local funding. Those are fundings that come from the city of Beverly. The orange is directly into the appropriated budget. The green section is what is other expenses that are made by the city that we report directly, so we do track and report for educational purposes for the families of Beverly. So, and then the light blue, the light green, and I think that's purple. The light blue and the light green are state and federal grants, and we're all keeping our eye and watching on those. And then the purple is our revolving funds as we, maintain them through other revenue sources that we have. So, next steps are to finalize our budget adjustments. We'll be presenting our final budget to you in 2 weeks. It will have a little bit more detail around the individual cost centers, so looking at each building and what is that impact of the numbers that we just shown you. We have our budget hearing on May 14th, sorry. And then your school committee budget vote follows that, and then the budget gets sent to the city. So that is, I'm happy to answer questions that anybody might have.
So Dr. Mackenzie DeFrance's hand first.
Thank you. I had a question about one of the slides. Just I didn't understand what the school lunch fund was and how that might take care of equipment. And then I had a second question, but
Okay,
I'll
the school lunch,
pause for that.
so our school lunch money is separate from our appropriated budget. It's a self-funded, I don't know the right way to describe that, but we had been paying for food service equipment repairs out of the appropriated budget, and we know we can do that. It's an allowable expense out of the school fund. So you can make that sound better if you'd like.
So our school lunch program is its own separate fund designated by Mass General Law as its own separate self-sustaining account. We are under those same guidelines. There are things that we are allowed to charge to that and things that we are not. So in our appropriated budget, we have historically carried forward in the appropriated budget some amount of money for equipment repairs, and it's mostly large equipment that's affixed to the building equipment, not small equipment, knives, cutting boards type stuff. But the big stuff, the good stuff, the fridges, the that kind of stuff. Those repairs can be absorbed within our school lunch program. We do, Massachusetts is fortunate enough to be a universal free meal program. And so in that, since COVID, when it was universal free meals funded through COVID funding, and then when the state adopted it after the conclusion of the federally funded COVID amount, we've seen a significant increase in our participation in our program. And what that means is that increase in participation has allowed us to, in some years, carry forward a small balance. So we have a structural surplus because there are only certain things that we can charge to that account. And so one of the things that we can charge through would be equipment repairs and sort of decrease that structural surplus. Similarly, there is best practice guidelines that say that we should only be carrying forward 3 months of revenue in there. So it's not the kind of thing where, well, should just, carry it because, again, guidelines would stipulate that we should only have 3 months of revenue carry forward in that account anyhow.
So how does that account get funded now if there's universal free meals?
Through federal and state reimbursement. And a la carte, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was just trying to figure out how that change affected. Sorry, so the second one was really, it sounds like something we're going to get to, which is the specificity of what's getting spent where. I just want to raise the question again about our libraries and hope that that'll come up in our conversation in terms of how we're funding someone to support them or some persons to support our elementary libraries. So I don't know if that's going to come up, but I'm hoping it will.
I will address it in the next meeting.
Thank you.
Did I see, Ms. Visnick, did you have your hand? No.
No, I'm just preparing. I'm all excited talking about revolving accounts to
Okay.
give my F&F report.
Were there other committee members that had questions for Dr. Trocek's presentation on the budget? Okay, and I think you said in 2 weeks' time, but I think that's school vacation week, so it'll be
It's
3 weeks' time.
Yep, sorry.
And I have a footnote on that as well, so.
Okay. Again, I also would like to say that probably prior to our next meeting, I would really love to have the opportunity, anyone that has individual questions or would like to kind of meet with me and go over some of them so that we're not throwing them up on a slide at the last minute for all of you for discussion. So I'm happy to set up times. You can call Donna and set up a time anytime over the next, couple of weeks. I'm happy to do that. And I can go through individually where we are at and what we've looked at as we go. It just might be helpful in a smaller setting.
Sounds good. I am going to jump to this. We're going a little bit long today. The Zoom bar is right over the toolbar that I need. Apologies again.
I always have to move mine.
Yeah, I gotta move the Zoom bar all over. Okay. Let's stick it back there. Today is just a brief update on the superintendent search. I think I can advance the slides. There we go. Our mission statement. We looked at this last week when we voted the finalists through. Our next step is the in-district days. Oops, I did want to back up and just remind folks, after we met last Wednesday, I sent out a packet of information about typical types of questions, and each of us had homework to send to our facilitator, questions that we might like to ask. If you haven't yet done so, please do that. I know, Ms. Visnick, you had a question out. Did you get an answer? Okay. Generally, 4 to 5 questions will give the facilitator enough to work with, because we'll then need to make sure we don't have too much overlap. And that way, each member will be assigned 1 or 2 or possibly 3 questions for the interviews. We have to remember the candidates will have had a very long day in district, starting at our preschool, going to our elementary, to our high school, to our middle school, and then meeting with community members and stakeholders here before the interview. So I think that the interviews are set for about 90 minutes. It will give us each time to ask a couple of questions. And so if you could get those questions to Alicia Mallon at MASC in the next day or so. She really needs to be able to sort through them, assign them, and then have them prepared. Our first candidate comes in on Monday. Ms. Robinson.
Just a question. So in our packet, there were questions that had already been asked. Are our questions supposed to be different from those, or can they just add on to them? I was just wondering.
That was where I was hoping Ms. Mallon had been able to get back to Ms. Visnick, because I think that was a similar question. Mayor Cahill.
I would say, common sense says to me that if a question that we've already asked at the screening committee level feels important to you to hear the answer to, I don't see why you couldn't ask it. I mean, it's, this group of 7 has to make that decision, right? So, I think it's fair game for a question to be repeated.
Okay, and Ms. Visnick?
The reason why I asked that question to Ms. MASC was because really what I asked was, can I see the answers to those questions, in the sense that I don't want to waste one of my questions asking a question that maybe somebody has already prepared their answer to. More to the point, it would be more valuable to say, all right, I know I asked you question XYZ and you answered ABC, and now I want to probe into that a little deeper. I want to get even more detail. And so it's really a double thing. I don't want to waste one of my questions. We have limited time with that person. And if they already answered that question, why should we ask it again? We should be able to just go forward. And then the second part is maybe there is a great follow-on question.
So Ms. Mallon made a great analogy. The work of the screening committee is like an Etch-a-Sketch, and it's all shaken clean. So nothing that was answered in that will be available to this committee. In fact, papers were shredded. I don't know. We have the memory of what was discussed, but other than that, we're not reporting out. Yeah, it's kind of a blur. There's a lot of people. No. To the mayor's point, if there's an important question that you saw was asked by the screening committee and you want to know the answer, it would inform your decision. You should put that on your short list of questions back to Ms. Mallon. Mayor.
So there's intended to be a 90-minute window? No, I'm asking.
I don't have it exactly set, but having people show up at 9 in the morning and our meeting starts at 7:30, I was thinking it would be cruel to keep them past 9 p.m.
No, I hear you.
I mean, I'm starting to fade.
So we were getting through 14 or 15 questions in 75 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If there's 90 minutes, I'm just thinking out loud here, right? I mean, if 5 people get 3 questions each and you and I each get 2, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it really depends on what our homework, like what we put into Ms. Mallon. She will help us gauge it and to come up with a fair representation of questions. Like that's why we're paying her for her skill. There's going to be an opportunity for the candidates to give an opening statement, reflect on their visit to the district, and there's also an opportunity for a closing statement. So we have to factor that into the time as well. Ms. Visnick, I see her.
I want to ask about item 2 in the second enumerated list, because maybe the stakeholder feedback, maybe there's stakeholder feedback already that we can and should be using to formulate our questions. In the sense that maybe you two, because you were on the screening committee, already had access to that, but we haven't had access to anything. So is there, and I believe at the end of our last meeting, you told us to not go fishing, don't be talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have some number of constituents that are using the voodoo doll on me or something, saying, oh, this is like Lorinda Mind Meld, this is what I want you to ask. How am I supposed to know what they want asked? Because I don't have any access to any of that stuff.
Yeah. So the initial stakeholder information was only seen by Alicia Mallon, and that synthesized the report that she gave to us. It was that remote night that we had her present the slides in the Word bubbles and
Yeah.
charts and all of that. There is another opportunity for stakeholder feedback. I'm going to get to that. I just had to advance the slides to make sure it was still there. There's going to be stakeholder feedback coming after the interviews, after the in-district days via a Survey Monkey, and I can pull the questions up. I think the guidance is generally like we shouldn't be working on social media. We shouldn't be doing our own reference checks or digging in or doing any of that. The candidates are coming to be asked the same questions, and it's an open process that will be conducted here in this room. And then we will have the stakeholder input from the in-district days and the stakeholders that either our teachers or our students or community members, our CPAC has a dedicated time as well with each of the candidates, and they will provide it in a written form that MASC will consolidate. We're asking for that feedback for 10 a.m. so that it can get to us like very shortly thereafter, and we have 5 to 6 hours to look at that stakeholder input, but it wouldn't change our questions. I know, you don't like the answer. Okay. Dr. Silva.
I find it challenging to accept not being able to do reference checks, in the sense that, if someone I know that they've worked with, are you telling me I can't ask them questions about?
We should not individually be doing reference checks. Most of the candidates have provided a list of references, and our facilitator has vetted and will continue to vet those references to make sure they're valid. But we shouldn't be individually we have a very prescribed role. Like, we hire the superintendent as a body, and we have elected to hire MASC to run the search for us. I don't think there's any expectation that any one of us should be doing any sort of employment or pre-employment verification of any sort.
Because MASC has done that.
Yes.
And if there was an issue, MASC would have filtered that out in terms of presenting it as a viable candidate.
Getting into a very specific case, I encourage you to call Alicia Mallon at MASC for your concern. Okay. So if you haven't sent your questions to Alicia, please do look at that packet that I sent 1 week ago. Get those questions to her, hopefully tomorrow, so she can do it on a Friday versus over the weekend, because our first candidate arrives early Monday morning. And I'm going to jump back to that slide. Just to let everyone know, our superintendent page on the website continually gets updated. Today, I actually have the Meet the Candidates so that the schedule is available online for the opportunity for stakeholders to visit in the afternoon. And it also has the link to the QR code. So our 3 candidates, this is the order. On Monday, April 14th, Dr. Jennifer Turner is going to be in district visiting our different levels of school, and then after school have an opportunity to meet with teachers and staff here at the middle school. Then our caregivers from the Special Education Parent Advisory Council will have an opportunity. There'll be a short dinner break. Then families, students, and other community members will be welcomed in to have an opportunity to ask questions and do the meet and greet and get other sort of stakeholder input. And then we will have our interview at 7:30. So that's replicated again on Tuesday, April 15th with Dr. Peter Cushing, and again on Wednesday, April 16th with Mr. Sean Gallagher. So those are the dates and times for the community. What's that?
Can you share that with us?
Our district website has all of this information. Yeah, it has all of this information. I just blew it up onto the slide so we could read it. But the district website has a Meet the Candidates page, and we'll continue to refine that page just to make sure it's explicit and clear that, and I'll share this now, for the stakeholder survey, people will have the opportunity to answer that survey 3 times, once for each candidate, but they should really only answer it for the candidates they saw. So if they can't get here Monday and Wednesday, but they came on Tuesday, they would have Dr. Peter Cushing and they could provide feedback. But the survey is a Survey Monkey, and I don't know if I made it clickable here. I did not. Sorry. It's available on our website. Please don't fill it in until you've actually met the candidates. But it will give you the opportunity to say whether you think the candidate will be successful or not successful, what support will they need from the administration or from the staff or from the community. There's just some general prompts to allow people to put in some short answers.
You're talking to the community right now?
Yes.
Okay,
in the
I'm sorry. You
community.
were looking at us saying you.
No, in
So-
fact, we are not supposed to be
Right,
here
right.
during the stakeholder visits. In fact, I'm going to actually ask us to stay out in the lobby because they will have this room until 7:15.
So the ability to read through feedback, the community is going to have to turn their feedback around quickly.
Pretty quickly. Mhm.
Our ability to read through it, should we look at it all from Wednesday night through Thursday night?
I think we're going to give people till 10 o'clock. BevCam will be broadcasting all 3 nights. So people don't have to be here in person. That was one source of debate because in prior years, we didn't want candidate 3 to hear the answers from candidate 1 or know the questions in advance. In this day and age, everybody is going to be live streamed. And hopefully people will start providing feedback immediately following the interviews so that it is provided. We can ask Ms. Mallon to give us an initial drop, but really, I would say, to be fair to all candidates, we shouldn't look at any of the feedback until we've seen all the candidates for our own selves. So that's why there's a 10 a.m. Thursday. So between 10 and 7:30 is when we'd have the opportunity to look at it.
10 a.m. Thursday, yeah.
10 a.m. Thursday to 6:30 on Thursday, yeah.
6:30, oh, right, we're at.
Thursday.
So somebody has, if they want to give feedback on Monday night's candidate, they've got 2 or 3 days. They got a couple of days on Tuesday, but only really overnight into the next morning for Wednesday's candidate.
Yeah.
So if somebody's looking to give us feedback on all 3, that's the window of time they've got. We've got from.
Anyone who's here in person will have a QR code so they can do it from their device if they so wish. But yeah, hopefully people will have a quick turnaround and understand if they want to provide feedback on that third
Sure,
candidate, they really need to jump on it.
Okay,
so.
okay. And we've got to clear our calendars on Thursday then. We're going to have to go cancel a few meetings. No, we need time to read through everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you can set up, I know Adobe can do reading to you, so maybe
Reading
you
to you.
have it read to you. Okay, so I think I covered most of those points. Oh, sorry, Ms. Coelho.
Could you back up one more slide for a minute? I just want to make sure I read that right. So these meetings are going to happen here.
Yes.
Tuesday, April 15th from 5:30 to 8:30 is actually the 5th grade middle school bingo family night out there.
It's on the second floor cafeteria. or
They
the
changed it to the second
cafeteria.
floor. That's not what
third
the
floor,
flyer
yeah,
said.
The
That's
second
why.
cafeteria. Yeah, sorry, it's in the second.
That's not what the flyer said. That's why I was like,
Parking
Oh,
will be lovely.
That would be very exciting, yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, we've gotten really good at looking at all the spaces and just trying to figure out the logistics with, traffic and what time students and buses and everything. But, yeah, I think the other thing is, we obviously have a special election on Tuesday, the 15th in our elementary school. So that kind of helps us pick the best elementary school, the one that doesn't have voting. So, yeah. Yep. Yeah. So please plan to be here at 7:20 on Monday for the first interview. Please send your questions to Ms. Mallon tonight when you get home or tomorrow early in the day so she can compile them and help us know in advance which questions we're asking because we will be a well-oiled machine next week. 4 nights together. Okay, we have a couple other items on the agenda for the chair's report. I don't know how to stop that, so I'm just going to stop the share. We had in our packet for a first reading at our last meeting, now this is our second reading, the policies BDG related to our school attorney, BE related to school committee meetings, and BEC related to executive session.
You want to move them together?
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Were there any comments or questions? We're in agreement with as shown. All those in favor? 7-0, great. Also in your packet was a planned schedule for our fall meetings. I like to always revisit the fact that we had agreed to stack our meetings. I know tonight, for instance, the students are finding it really difficult to do a 5 o'clock remote-only Zoom, especially with sports and band and musicals and everything. So we might need to find another time to do that. We do have a student rep that's here, but we're also supposed to meet with students. We've put it on as a placeholder here, but I think, that might be something that we need to be more flexible going into the fall schedule. It depends on who the students are as well. So.
Are we voting on this?
Yeah. We
Oh,
got
a motion to accept?
Okay. And is there a second?
Second.
Oh, I heard Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. We'll get you on the next one, Kim. Okay. Are there any concerns? I know, Donna, you do an excellent job making sure you work around like the holidays like Thanksgiving and whatnot. Okay. And we lost the mayor, but if there's no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor? 6 with 1 absent. Okay. So upcoming meeting and dates, obviously we just talked about all the time we'll be spending together next week. I also wanted to point out that we still haven't squeezed our joint council meeting in with city council, which is required by our city charter. I had a proposal that we might be able to squeeze it onto the night of April 30th with our committee of the whole work. I know we have a lot more that we need to discuss amongst ourselves, but we could perhaps stack a brief committee, a joint council that evening. I haven't heard back from Mr. Ailes. I know, Sue, you could present on our... Yeah, no. Yeah, so we could have a joint council, then a committee of the whole. Kind of, that's what I was thinking. Right. Oh, and you have F&F. Can we put F&F on a Tuesday or Thursday? Like, no, I'm just kidding.
Of course I could.
So anyway, I think it will be important for us, if the 30th doesn't work, it sounds like May 7th might be open as an alternate for joint council, but I think, we need to make sure that we have an opportunity to meet with our city council counterparts as intended by our city charter before our public hearing on the budget.
Would that be at the high school again?
We have
Was it
done it in
here?
the high school because the layout is just a little bit more conducive to setting the tables up.
We could do it just like this, and then you could have your dance partner on the other side of your table.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for our interviews, we're all gonna probably be on this side like we were 6 years ago, so the candidate can look out to the audience. Yeah. And we will move the WB Mason boxes this time. The backdrop, yeah. This is organizational. We can take this offline to schedule, but either April 30th, squeezing joint council before our committee of the whole, or May 7th, prior to our public hearing on May 14th. Yeah. Okay, that went over. Why don't we move on to the second page of our agenda now that it's 9:39 p.m. Ms. Visnick, would you care to give us a report out from the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities.
Fantastic, thank you. Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities last met on March 26th, and the big takeaway, if anybody wants to rewind or go find the video on BevCam, we reviewed all of our revolving accounts and the trends over the last 15 years. So, for instance, our transportation revolving account used to cover approximately 28% of the total cost to run our transportation, and now it only covers 16%. And athletics used to cover 59, almost, 59, and now it only covers 33. Elementary music spiked one year, covered 40, but on general average, it was 30%, and now it covers 0 because during COVID, we dropped those fees and we never reinstated them. On the positive side, preschool used to only cover 6.5%. The how do I want to say, the partner children. We have to... The peers, thank you. I knew it was a P word. So we have to educate children 2.5 and up who have needs, but then we also accept peers, and the peers pay. And so it used to only cover 6.5%, and that is actually trending upward. In 2021, it spiked up to 16% because we extended the day for the peers, and so we charged more money, and now it's around 12% coverage. And finally, we talked a lot earlier this evening about school choice. We used to only bring in $359,000. The last figure that we had on the chart from last year was $733,000. We have several policies for a first reading. They were in your packet. I'm going to remind you, kind of half wearing my F&F hat and half wearing my policy hat, that if you're looking at a policy and there's yellow, there's highlight on it, those highlights are either changes brought forward from the subcommittee. We're doing a series of minor edits around the pronouns as well as the school committee versus the committee. So there might be minor changes like that, or perhaps the yellow is bringing your attention, thanks to Donna, to differences in between the Beverly policy and an MASC version of the policy. So if you have questions about those, we're going to vote on those next meeting. We have gifts to schools. The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends approval of the attached February 2025 gifts to schools totaling $1,383.92. That is my motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? 6-0.
We also had some budget transfers. They were all in your packet. So the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends approval of the attached budget transfers number 953, 968, and 998. That is my motion.
Second. Are there any questions? All those in favor of the three transfers? 6-0.
We are next scheduled to meet on April 30th, or perhaps not, depending on what happens with our city council friends. At that meeting, we are hoping to host the athletic director. And so as a general rule of thumb, we have a different department come in and give us an update on what's happening. And so whether we meet on that exact night or not, if you have any questions for the athletic department, please send them ahead of time. We like to pass them along to our special guests so they can prepare rather than go, oh, I don't have that number, I'll have to get back to you. And then in a little preview, in June, we're hoping to have a longer discussion about energy costs and energy offsets, including but not limited to all the solar in the city. So Dr. Silva has asked on more than one occasion, and unfortunately it's not a simple one-to-one model where we say, well, we built a solar canopy back here and it pays for however many classrooms. It doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, it's nowhere near that simple. So we're hoping to have that as we look forward in our topics for F&F. We're hoping once we get past the budget, we can delve into energy across the district.
Thank you. And Dr. Ken and Mackenzie DeFranza, if you wouldn't mind giving us a standing committee report for curriculum instruction and student life.
Absolutely. So we met today. The feature of our discussion was looking at the ELA curriculum, and we looked specifically K to 8 and at the high school. We spent a considerable amount of time looking at wit and wisdom, including teacher feedback, and we had our young people here, which was pretty amazing. They were giving us testimonials in person and on video with general positive reviews. We talked about how the literacy coaches were instrumental in much of this work, including Great Minds as a support, one of our PD vendors. We also talked about the collaboration that it required across the district, which seemed to be really appreciated. And we also talked about, the middle school having its now second year looking at reading reconsidered. In addition to that, the high school went on essentially an opportunity to look at how to diversify their texts and have essentially brought in text to add to the more traditional text. So not removing, but adding some diversity and sharing how students essentially were reported as maybe reading more. There was also some sharing of MCAS data that, again, looked pretty positive. And in some instances, we were able to exceed our pre-COVID numbers in terms of achievement. So there were a couple of areas, that need some work with that, but in general, trending in the right direction. And we're going to meet next on May 14th for more updates. But essentially, we heard really positive things for the most part from our librarian, from our instructors, literary coaches, students, and in general, really positive feedback, I suppose, to keep those going and also to see the positive trend in our MCAS scores. We also had a couple policies that were going to come forward today. So should we move on to those? So a second reading and vote today would be on two policies. One of them is policy ADF, which was in our packet, School District Wellness Program. So the motion from our Standing Committee on Curriculum, Instruction, and Student Life is to approve the attached policy on school district wellness for a second reading and vote.
Second.
Are there any?
You make the motion and then
Yep.
Linda, you're seconding? Okay.
Mhm.
Is there any discussion on the school wellness program policy, ADF, as presented? All those in favor?
Thank you. So the second policy is the approval of handbooks and directives, policy CHCA in our packet. The recommended motion that I'd like to make is the Standing Committee on Curriculum, Instruction, and Student Life recommends approval of the attached policy, CHCA, approval of handbooks and directives for the second reading and vote.
I will second that, but I want to just make a note. I think there's one opportunity to gender neutralize the his, her judgment to there.
Yeah, I think that would be consistent with our
Consistent
other
with all the
policies.
other
Mhm.
changes. I'm sorry, Ms. Robinson, I saw you going for your mic. Were you gonna?
I was going to second that.
Oh, okay.
I can wait.
Okay, I'll let you and Kim have the motion to adjourn soon. Okay. Okay. Any more discussion on that? All those in favor? 7-0. Okay. The chair is gonna.
Thank you.
Yeah. We do have communication from school committee members, and I was going to say the chair is going to cancel the executive session that we had planned. Things are on pause. Communications from school committee members.
This is more of an announcement on May 7th, and we will have one more meeting. We'll have a lot more meetings next week, but we'll have another meeting, and I'll try to remind everybody. May 7th is Walk to School Day, and so if you want to walk, think about walking. If you're a driver around that time, you really need to think about maybe leaving earlier. So it's on my little PSA. It's always disruptive to the traffic to have hundreds of children crossing in a given crosswalk.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Robinson and Ms. Coelho, take it away.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Thank you, Ms. Coelho. It's not debatable. All those in favor? 70949. Thank you, BevCam, as always. Thank you for watching at home, and we'll see you many times next week.